Hey there, can you hear me? We're almost ready.
Cool.
It's Friday. Who's ready for it? Yeah, I'm not ready either. I mean, I'm ready for Friday, but as usual, there I am. Still not. Let me kind of do a little better. Oh, not picking noses. There. I'm hearing an echo. Why? Oh, that's the phone. I need a producer so bad, but we got a couple other announcements regarding similar today. We are started, so I can take that off. It's up the middle Friday fights. I don't know that we're going to be getting in that many fights today. That honestly, Trump's DEI claims are debunked again. Like, how many more times is he going to lie about this? And then there's his cabinet. I mean, wow. I've seen smarter cabinets at IKEA and liquor cabinets fully stocked with less liquor. And then the freeze on the funding. Well, the freeze is frozen and then thawed out. But first, breaking news as of this morning, senior Treasury boss David Lebryk has announced his protesting resignation, essentially over a pissing match with Musk and company. That's according to Reuters. The Washington Post, I think, was the first one to break it. Lebryk denied Musk's people access to a payment system that manages Social Security, Medicare benefits, federal salaries, government payment contracts, or government contract payment system. And you ready? The fifth element that this controls: your tax refunds. So they said they weren't going to do it, and now they're coming after your Social Security. So maybe he's going to disagree with that. I don't know. We'll bring him out. With us, as always, Blake Fisher, host of The Homeless Conservative, and a regular here every Friday. He's usually the one I slug it out with, and I don't know. I just don't think we're going to be at.
I think we'll find some things that we disagree on. The DEI thing, I'm going to disagree on. I hate to break it to you.
What's that? Well, first, have you seen the thing about Lebryk yet? This is breaking.
I haven't. No. I was catching up on some stuff that I didn't. I was busy the last couple days, kind of with some other stuff, and I got to watch RFK's first hearing, but didn't get to watch Gabbard's or Kash Patel's. So I was kind of catching up on some reading about those.
Yeah, we're now also today on 99.1 WDJY, the Tantalk Network, WTAN, and WDCF. Some announcements with a bunch of those later in the show. But yeah, so I'm not surprised with, and it's breaking. So we don't usually, we'll take breaking news at Mastiff Media.
Well, but it can tie in. It can tie into the general, hey, we're pausing hiring and we're also giving everyone a buyout option if you want to quit.
Yeah,
kind of falls in line with that, I feel like.
It does, but that's all we really know.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to slam Trump for making rash decisions or judgments about the crash the other night.
Well,
beyond uncalled for.
I'm okay with that. I mean, I'm okay with
no. I've dealt with tragedy on the day of.
No, I'm saying it's okay. I'm okay with calling out his tweet, yeah, or his truth or whatever. I think first of all, I think anyone that blames people, like in the immediate aftermath of something, anyone that blames anyone immediately in the aftermath, when I say immediately, I mean truly immediately. We know more now.
He did it that night.
Right, that's what I'm saying. I think that's not presidential for sure, although I don't think he was wrong in some of the things he said in it, but I still don't think it's the right thing to do.
Well, funny you say that. If I could find it, I would bring up another source. There are two brothers in journalism called the Crescentine twins. And they did some looking into this. I subscribe to their newsletter and to whatever else you would call it, their pamphlet. But this is a pretty good, well done doc. Let's see if I can share here and make this look like it's almost a professional show as we steal somebody else's email. There we go. So he tries to blame dwarfs. I don't know where that came from. I missed that.
I don't think it. I think again. I think that this is a classic example of how the media does this. What they take is the most ridiculous version of what Trump said. And, of course, he says ridiculous stuff all the time.
I watched when he said that and I fell out of my chair.
Yeah. But
you're seriously saying that tonight? But
he's not wrong that DEI has probably caused some of this problem.
No. Well, look at that. As soon as I get a QR code off of my face. Biz Growth Collective, check that out at bizgrowthcollective.com. That is like the better version of LinkedIn. Ken joining us as always. Have you heard about this David Lebryk guy, Ken? Let us know, because he's in like healthcare and such. Let us know if you know what's happening, or if you're familiar with what's happening in DC with Lebryk is a senior official at the Treasury Department, by the way. I think I might have forgotten to mention that. But he denied Musk's people access to a payment system that managed Social Security payments, Medicare payments, federal salaries, government contract payments, and tax refunds. So we'll be talking about that later. But Blake had mentioned, I can take his, now Blake's covered with a comment.
That's fine.
Blake mentioned that you're thinking that some of this is a legitimate claim.
Oh yeah, absolutely, okay. Like, without a doubt.
Well, let's see what the Crescentines say. Fact-checking Trump's lies about the FAA and airline safety. Donald Trump has once again taken to social media to spread misinformation. This time about the Federal Aviation Administration.
Love that word, by the way, misinformation. It covers all manners of sins, doesn't it? You can just label anything misinformation, and then we get it's done, right?
Yeah, but I think it's better than using words like bullshit or calling the president of the United States a liar.
No, I think it's the left's new buzzword that they claim everything they don't like is misinformation. And even when they're wrong about it a few years later. Lebryk theory was racist misinformation until the CIA says it's not.
Here it is. Here's the breaking news. You people need to start listening to me. I have said that he's a baldy. Look at that.
A what?
A baldy.
Oh, I don't care about his hair. Of course, the comb over is covering.
He says this is his hair.
It is his hair. It's a comb over, though.
He denies being bald. Look at that.
This stuff does not matter. I don't care if he's bald. We won't ever elect a bald president again, unfortunately, but it wouldn't bother me if we did.
I've seen fatter anorexics. That's thin. That hairline is thin.
I know, but I don't know why it matters.
Because it's a liar.
It does. This is the least offensive thing about Trump is his hair to me, which should say a lot.
Oh, yeah, exactly. But back to our misinformation. This time about the Federal Aviation Administration and its hiring practices. In his latest attack, Trump falsely claimed that the FAA hires air traffic controllers with severe disabilities, including hearing and vision impairments. That is exactly what he said. And I'm like, I've been in FAA towers. They're in better shape than I am.
I don't know. I don't think. I think here's where he's wrong. It's like to blame disabled people. That's not the problem. But there is a DEI hiring problem that started under the Obama administration with the air traffic controllers in FAA that has trickled through through Obama's and then Trump's and then Biden's administration. And we've had a lot of near misses.
We're going to talk about that.
Yeah.
This is including hearing and vision impairments. His remarks laced with inflammatory language attempt to stoke fear about airline safety. Let's break down the facts. Again, courtesy of the Krasantine brothers. We'll give you their email in a minute. Claim number one. Oh, I don't want to give you the truth yet. Claim number one. Trump blames disabled people and dwarfs. I missed that. I would have picked up on dwarfs. I mean, come on.
Also, not really sure why. Not really sure why a dwarf wouldn't be able to be an air traffic controller any differently than or someone in a wheelchair. Last I checked, they don't need their legs a lot to.
Yes, they do.
Do they?
I've been in towers. I've been the airport agent. Well, I've been the tower agent at presidential visits. We put an agent in the actual FAA tower to communicate directly with our security room at the airport and with the command post for the whole region. And you need to be able to stand because you need to the desks, the control panels, and how they manage everything, both with the radar, the manual systems, the maps that are spread out all over the place. You need to be able to stand and then literally to see out the window.
But I mean, there's not. But surely there's some jobs in there that would be okay for someone in a wheelchair to have, right? I mean, maybe not every job. But not in the tower. Okay. I don't know. I've never been in a tower.
That's what we're going to talk about, and that's where the FAA is in compliance with the Equal Opportunity Act. So here's what Trump said. As a matter of policy, as identified for special emphasis in recruitment and hiring, the FAA's website states that hearing, vision, missing extremities, partial paralysis, complete paralysis, epilepsy, severe intellectual disability, psychiatric disability, and dwarfism all qualify for the position of a controller of airlines pouring into our country. That's what he said. The truth.
I don't believe that Trump actually typed that, by the way. It's got too many commas, not enough capital words. That's not what Trump said.
First of all, it's proper English.
Yeah, someone else wrote that for sure.
Yeah.
It's never more obvious with anyone when he writes it or someone else writes it. It's just
during his first campaign, his staff literally took away his phone. And as such, the tweets because Truth Social wasn't a thing then, the tweets that started coming out were actually intelligent. Like, you might almost want to vote for the guy if you were, smart. But then he took it back because he was bored or whatever. And the rest is history, literally. The truth. This is misleading and taken out of context. Trump's statement suggests that the FAA actively recruits individuals with serious physical and intellectual disabilities to work as air traffic controllers. However, the policy he references has been in place since 2013 under the Obama administration, as you had said, and remained unchanged through Trump's own presidency. This can be verified through records on the Internet Archive. And that's it there. We'll put this in the show notes. That's the 2017 archive of the FAA website under Trump. Moreover, the FAA follows federal equal opportunity employment laws, which require agencies to be inclusive and not discriminate against applicants based on disabilities. However, this does not mean that all listed disabilities qualify someone to be an air traffic controller. The FAA has strict medical and performance requirements, ensuring that controllers are fully capable of handling the demands of the job. According to the Krasantine brothers, their verdict on this statement is misleading and fear-mongering. What do you say?
Well, I think there are two different issues here that we're talking about. And Trump, because he's not a good communicator, mixes the two of them up. Yes, there are. So he's, and you just said it a moment ago. Yeah.
He's not a good communicator and he mixes things up.
Yeah.
But that tweet or that truth, as they call it.
Yeah. I mean,
that post of BS was not done by him, we think. So wouldn't you suspect, or at least hope, that the people that are doing that in his place at least have a clue and know how to spell Google?
Well, that's the problem with hiring people, and the priority is them being loyal to you instead of being good at their job necessarily. Yeah.
Speaking of DEI hires.
Yeah. Although that's not a DEI hire, that's more of it's a sycophant kind of hire, which I think is foolish too. But like I said, it's his prerogative.
It's what we'll call a button booby hire. A blonde button booby hire is what that is.
Yeah, I mean,
whatever his press secretary's name is.
Yeah, but I mean, come on, look, let's not pretend that Biden's press secretary. First of all, it's the worst job in all of government. There's no way. There's no worse job than being the the White House press secretary now. Okay, here's where the things get mixed up, in my opinion. It's one thing to say, like I said, we start talking about dwarfs, start whatever, disabled people. Yeah, there's certain jobs that we're going to say that there is a physical requirement to it, or whatever. The problem that I've seen has more credibility to the claim of, hey, this is actually something where there's a there is starting in Obama's administration. They were rejecting, I guess, there's basically a sort of program that is the Collegiate Training Initiative program that the air traffic control specifically hires out of. It's like an aptitude sort of test and things. And it's like basically a pipeline to a career with air traffic control. And because this is
most of those guys come from the military anyway.
But much like the Secret Service, air traffic control is required essentially to have a 100% never fail rate, right? Because you make a mistake and it costs lives. And so
they call incidents like that a near miss.
Yeah,
that's not a near miss. That's a near hit.
Right. Yeah. And
if they hit each other, that's a near miss.
Yeah. So the problem is that you've got, Obama rejected.
Was that too soon?
No, I don't think so.
No. So 2 days later is not too soon.
Well, I'm saying it's not. I think the problem is that should not be a surprise. I mean, I don't want to, it's a tragedy. And by the way, airline travel is totally safe. The last commercial airline crash in the United States was in 2009. So over 15 years ago.
So that's the one in Buffalo?
I don't remember where it was.
I think that there was one in Buffalo. The other one was in New York.
I think it was Buffalo. I think that's right.
In Queens, like 2 months after September 11th. I was there for that. I was at New York City Hall working in the UN visit. And I was doing counter surveillance for Pakistan. And we were at City Hall at a meeting, and we got all our pagers went off, and we all just everybody's pager goes off in this whole courtyard we're all standing in out front, actually at the place where Nathan Hale was hanged during the American Revolution. In that yard, and all of our pagers go off. We didn't even have cell phones at that time, and we're all afraid to look. And we do, and we get word of this flight that crashed in Queens, and of course, all these other intelligence people and positions like that start going lights and siren over to Queens to check that out, because 2 months later, they're thinking it's another terrorist attack. And I think it was birds flew into the engine and caused it to go down.
Yeah. So we haven't had, it's still very rare, but we have had a lot of, near misses, near hits, whatever we want to call them. Near hits is really what they're, but look, I sent you 4 New York Times articles from just this past year about it.
But especially there at Reagan.
Oh, yeah.
Which one is it? Atlanta, Hartsfield.
Yeah.
Goes back and forth between that airport and I think it's one in China.
For the busiest.
The 2 busiest airports in the world.
Yeah. And Washington's is specifically rough. Yeah.
That runway that they were initially trying to land on is the busiest runway in the world. That one runway that they diverted off of, and onto 33, is the busiest runway in the world. So when you think about all of the other traffic, that even at 9 o'clock at night, I think I might have told you, I used to be the airport agent for the Secret Service at Reagan Airport. I know probably a handful of those 300 guys that responded to that. because, they're still on the job, and I worked with them when they were at Metropolitan Washington Airport Authority, one of the police departments and fire agencies. And that it has a curfew because of the area that it's in. There's a noise ordinance. That and San Francisco International are the two that I know of that suffer from that. But up until that point, it is nonstop.
Yeah. And apparently, it's pretty treacherous.
Because of the restricted airspace. Yeah. And because of the restricted airspace and the 3 runways that they have, one of them is better suited than the other 2. So pending weather and things like that, because you take off into the wind, I think, with the wind to your face. And so whatever way the wind's blowing, but also whatever else they can do, that one particular runway is the busiest one in the world. I remember working there for 2 or 3 years, however long it was. I never knew that. But anyway, his other claim was that the FAA hires visually and hearing impaired air traffic controllers. So here's exactly what Trump said. Trump implies that air traffic controllers can be visually or hearing impaired while directing air traffic, insinuating that this is part of a misguided diversity push. The claim is completely false. The FAA has clear medical requirements for air traffic controllers, which include excellent vision. Controllers must pass a vision exam, ensuring they have at least 20/20 vision, corrected or uncorrected, and full color perception. You can't be colorblind. Normal hearing. Controllers must pass an audiometric test to ensure they can hear and interpret radio communications from pilots and other controllers. There is zero evidence that the FAA hires individuals with significant hearing or vision impairments as air traffic controllers, while the FAA employs about 43,000 people.
Yeah, but let's get to the part that I think does matter, though, is that they are trying to hire based on skin color, which certainly doesn't matter.
But, only about 30% of them work as air traffic controllers. The agency also hires thousands of other professionals, including engineers, technicians, and administrative staff, some of whom have disabilities that don't affect their ability to perform their duties. And remember, we also said, as a government agency, they're part of the Equal Employment Opportunity Act. For those other positions, they can't discriminate because an applicant is in a wheelchair. In fact, they have to make the accommodations for that person if they score, as a hireable candidate. So Trump's claim is not just false, it's dangerous. This, again, according to the Krasensteins, but, you know that I'm no fan of Trump.
Yeah, but my alternate opinion of that is like, sure, maybe the wheelchairs, these other things, debunked. But what's not debunked is that Obama decided we don't want to pull from the list of people that are qualified and that are being pipelined to us as these people are passing tests that show they are qualified for the pipeline of air traffic controllers. He didn't like it because it wasn't diverse enough. So he didn't like that the pool of people that were qualified wasn't diverse enough. So they started ignoring that. And according to a lawsuit that the FAA is currently in that got brought last year, they are being sued for discrimination because they're basically saying, look, you were discriminating against a skin color or a race or a gender or whatever because you wanted more diversity. Now, here's the other truth about that. Obama started that policy. Trump continued it. Biden continued it. And Trump only just now stopped it. So, he's not, look, this started under Obama, but he was president for 4 years too, and didn't stop this from happening. And the one thing we know so far about this crash, and I'm not going to try to speculate about whose fault it was or whatever, but we do know from the initial FAA report that there was one air traffic controller covering helicopters and planes, and normally that should be 2 people's jobs. FAA has already come out and said this was unusual for the time of day and the traffic pattern for the staffing that was happening in the thing. So that's a failure of the government. And these bells have been going off. These alarms have been going off for a long time. New York Times had 4 articles last year that I count on near accidents and documenting all these cases, documenting the stress level that it's causing the people that are in air traffic control because they're having to work longer. Some of this is also just compounded by the fact that, like every other thing right now, boomers are retiring and they're struggling to replace them with people that can be in the job for long enough that they feel qualified to replace those people that have been doing it for decades. And there's been a burnout problem. There have been people drunk on the job. This has been screaming at us in the face that this. Now, I'm not even saying the air traffic control messed up in this case. They might not have. We don't know that yet. But we have to take this opportunity to look at these things.
Of jumping to conclusions, and Trump and you and I both refraining from doing that. That night, while Trump was also saying, I'm trying to find it because the CEO of American Airlines, one of the vehicle aircraft in the he's now expressing deep sorrow and blah 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 and whatever else, but he blamed the helicopter pilots.
I think it's probably right now. I'm like I said, not jumping.
He blamed 3 experienced helicopter pilots.
Well, but I mean, here's the thing. So far from what we know from the audio, I don't understand how I don't understand how it's the plane's fault. I've not seen anything that indicates that the pilots of the plane did anything that they weren't supposed to, because the radio communication that we have on air traffic control is talking to the pilots of the helicopter to go behind the plane. They're asking, do you see it? So to me, it's either the Army helicopter's fault, which, by the way, we've had a lot of military crashes too. It's not actually up. I looked at the stats, at least the Air Force ones, but I've been able to aggregate all of the Army, Air Force, and different things together. But they're pretty much flat over the last 10 years. Like, they're not going down, the number of military crashes. So we don't know.
But that's like saying, the amount of gun accidents haven't gone down on a firing range. That's where they're going to happen.
Well, but what? No,
the military and the things they do compared to things that a commercial passenger jet does are way more risky.
No, but they should go down. They should go down with planes and helicopters should not be crashing in training exercises without mechanical malfunctions. If we're training and basically the combination of training and technology, that curve should be going down. And it has for the most part since the 50s. I mean, obviously precipitously until like the 90s. And we've had some upticks, and we've had a lot more ships crash, for example, in the last decade and a half or so. Like, we've had an uptick in actually ships, like Navy ships crashing. So there is some training problems, I think, here.
Or Navy or commercial ships like the one in Baltimore.
No, I'm talking about Navy specifically, but yes, I mean, that one was too.
I've heard about a bunch of different other commercial crashes of sorts.
Yeah, and what I'm talking about is specifically, I'm talking about pilot error ones, because that one in the Baltimore Bridge one was clearly negligence on the company not maintaining the ship well enough. They knew it had problems with power and they continued to use it, and they should have not done so. That seems like that was negligence, not pilot error. And we don't know. It could have been a helicopter malfunction. We don't know anything. We do not know what caused this crash yet. But so far, there's nothing indicating that it was the airline pilot of the American airline flight. Like I said, we don't know. It could be a total freak thing that has nothing to do with, like I said, helicopter could have malfunctioned. It does seem strange that a helicopter would run into a plane, because obviously helicopters are highly maneuverable. So we'll find out. But my point is,
no. So Trump said that. Trump said that too. Why didn't the helicopter just move and whatever else?
They obviously were not aware of where they were heading potentially.
Unlike Trump, I've been in a helicopter in the front at night. You can't see squat. And the plane is flying at 140 miles an hour. And I wouldn't doubt that the helicopter, which is faster because it wasn't on an approach to land, was probably pushing 200 at night.
Right, but we're speculating at this point.
No, I know. I've been on a helicopter at night flying over Washington, D.C. I've got pictures of it on my phone. You don't really see what you think you do.
Right, but that's why we need a system that prevents this from happening. That's why we need better technology. We need better air traffic controllers. Our
system is outdated. And I told you that in our chat. We go by radar, which means that each airport sends out a signal and a frequency, and like you're listening to a radio station. And as a plane, you tune into that frequency and you follow it. And you can tell what direction it's coming from. And that if you continue in that direction, it's getting stronger. That's how you know you're getting closer. That's it. That's how you fly by instruments. It's a very watered down education on it. But Europe and literally the rest of the world uses global positioning systems, which means you put in a city that you're flying to, the computers on board say, go that way, don't stop. And in a couple hours or however long it is, you're there. It's more efficient. It allows for less zigzagging, because if you're going from Miami to New York, you don't go from Miami to New York. You go from Miami to Fort Lauderdale, to Jacksonville, to Atlanta, and you connect the dots all the way up the coast. And that's an example. I don't know if that's the exact path, but that's an example. By using global positioning, you go from Miami to New York. That's it. And we don't do that. We're too antiquated.
Ken is asking, by the way, what I mean by DEI. To clarify, what I'm saying is that if you like having diversity is great. I have no problem. Although I think diversity of thought is much more interesting than diversity of skin color. It just frankly doesn't matter if the air traffic controller is purple to me, if they're qualified for the job. My problem is that if you have a government program that discriminates against anyone because they're not a skin color, that is discrimination no matter what. What I don't like about DEI is it has flipped the goals of the civil rights on its head. The goal of the civil rights was we passed a law that said you can't discriminate based on race and eventually sex. Okay. What DEI does, the DEI programs that are in the government, that are in these in corporations and things like that, they do discriminate based on race. They're just saying it's a good thing that we discriminate based on race. So Obama said, I don't like that this group of people, I assume, are white men. I'm just assuming that's what the problem was. There weren't enough women. There weren't enough people of color. And it's fine to have a goal of saying like, hey, we would like to encourage people of color to apply and to get into this program. But you don't reject a qualified applicant who's white because their skin color. That's not improvement. That's still discrimination. And the point is, if we had one guy covering helicopters and planes, to me, that proves that we've got a staffing problem. And we know that's true. We know that's true because the FAA has come out in the preliminary report. Okay?
That's been true since I was a kid.
Right. So why are you rejecting people?
We were different.
So why are you rejecting people because they're white? Because and you can't find someone that can replace them. That's my point, is that like, this is such a, especially with something like this, this is they have to have a 0% fail rate is what we expect from the FAA. I mean, really air traffic control specifically, but the FAA overall. And we've had all these near misses. This is not some new crazy thing. This is not a freak accident that never happens. We've had like dozens and dozens of and there are some specific airports that have had more problems than other. I think Austin is actually one that's had more near misses, is what they would say. I agree, Jurgs, we should call them near hits, because that near disasters, most of them are happening on runways where air traffic control is saying, yeah, you're cleared to take off on this runway, or you're cleared to land on this runway. And the pilot sees a plane crossing that runway and pulls up at the last minute. Some of them are pilot errors, but air traffic control is there to catch pilot errors. That's the whole point. That's the safety backup.
That's another thing I've done. You don't move on a tarmac. There's actually two towers. Not that be like a Lord of the Rings nerd here. Right. There's actually two towers. One is for air traffic, and the other is ground control.
Yeah. And we've got problems with the ground control part, clearly, too.
You get passed back and forth. They're in the same room. They're standing right aside of each other. No, actually, that's not true. Oftentimes, they're not.
Some place, it depends on the airport. Bigger ones might have two, but a lot of the smaller ones only have one still.
But what happens is the aircraft, the airborne aircraft is controlled by the tower that we all see from the parking lot and whatever else. But there's another tower that manages all the planes on the ground. And they're listening to what's going airborne or what's coming in, so that when you cross a runway, they're the traffic light of sorts for planes going back and forth across a runway, and where they're to taxi to. And once they get out onto some of the taxiway, then they get passed off to the air traffic control tower, because that's when they'll direct them to, turn around and give it the gas. But I found and again, just like Trump, this American Airlines CEO, Trump on Wednesday night didn't put to bed, or actually, I think he kind of kicked up. Excuse me. I'm getting sick. He kicked up the possibility of foul play.
Which, I mean,
again, having no idea what even happened yet.
Yeah, I think that, and I've seen some conspiracies that are like, oh, this is too, like, who was on that plane that was a target? I'm like, you really think someone ordered the military to crash a plane and kill three soldiers to take out someone on the plane? It was an ice skater on the plane, apparently, that was a Russian spy. Come on.
Skaters. Yeah. The 15 or 20 ice skaters.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're a threat to national security.
I'm all for questioning things. Let's question the official narrative, especially because the government is generally trying to cover their butts about something when they, almost every government lie is trying to cover up a government mistake. A lot of classifications are that too. So I'm all for asking questions, but jumping straight to the conspiracy theory that this was this was an attack, this was a purposeful thing, they were trying to kill someone on one of those on the plane. I think that's that's also kind of
say that, because the CEO of American Airlines made the same asinine statement. In fact, this is dated Thursday, but he actually said something Wednesday night also. We don't know why the Black Hawk helicopter came into the path of the plane. Well, first of all,
that is what happened.
You don't know that the Black Hawk helicopter came into the path of the plane.
Well, we do based on the recording and the FAA's initial thing, like I said, the full investigation's not out yet, but if they told him to go behind the plane and he ends up running into the plane, I don't see how it couldn't be that he ran into the path of the plane.
So
right?
That goes back to what I was talking about earlier. I didn't actually finish. Night flying is a certification by itself. You don't get your baby pilot's license and then, go cruising all night. To do that by itself is a certification.
Right. But how's that work in the Army? It's totally different.
Oh, no. The towers at an Army airfield or a joint base or wherever, that's the FAA. Many of them are enlisted personnel, but it's still governed by the FAA, not the military.
Right, but what I'm saying is that there's no indication that these wouldn't be inexperienced pilots, right?
No.
We don't know anything about them. It could have been their first flight. We don't know.
In fact, no, because the dad of the one was also a Black Hawk helicopter pilot. The dad of the one American Airlines pilots was also a Black Hawk helicopter pilot. I saw that the other day too. But one of the things, when something like this happens, all the local affiliates gets their local expert and says, here's what could have been the issue. And one of the good points was this one guy comes up and says, you hear him confirm to the helicopter pilot that they've got visual contact. Means it's basically airline speak for I see them.
Right.
That doesn't mean that's what he sees.
Right.
Because at night, depth perception is off. What you're looking at is off. And I've flown, like I told you, I've flown in DC. There are lights all over the place.
Right. That's the thing is this isn't a lot of municipalities, airports are off the beaten path a little bit. They're not, there's not a bunch of other buildings around it. There's like fields around. Our airport is just surrounded by basically nothing for a mile, right, in any direction. The end of the runway is right off the river in DC. So yeah, you've got all sorts of stuff. You're right. He could have not seen the right thing. I think that's the problem, is that we're not going to know, and we may never know. I mean, the black boxes are going to help us. They have recovered them.
It's dead.
Yeah, that's the. Now, I mean, I think the NTSB is going to, with the black boxes, and be able to tell exactly I mean, they know the path and stuff, but they're going to have more communications and the stuff that didn't go over the air in the black boxes, and I'm sure we'll know more. But the point of this is that no matter how you slice it, I think we need more training in the military for the plane stuff. We had an F-35 crash the other day too. It seems to be a malfunction of the plane, but we don't know that one yet either. So, these things are, it's tragic to me that it's tragic no matter what, but a lot of the deaths that we're seeing is in training exercises in helicopters and planes and stuff. And that's, like I said, it's been flat, but we should be able to get that number down.
Know. I think kind of like the line from the movie Iron Man. That's often the BS story. Is that an unfortunate training exercise, blah, blah, blah. And it was really some covert mission.
Well, but no, most of these are, we've got video of some of them and things. And some of them have been, and most of them are here in America. It's like at an Air Force base and it crashes and stuff. And so the goal should be to get those down for sure. Although that's, that's training and that's hours and there's a lot of things that need to go down. The FAA, we should not have, if we say that the staffing was unusual, and that's what the FAA has said so far, that should never be the case with air traffic control. This is a situation where I go, we need to give air traffic control and the FAA more resources potentially. I'm all for DOJ's goals of government efficiency, but sometimes government efficiency means you have to give them more money so that they can be more efficient. Efficiency is not my goal with the FAA. My goal with air traffic control specifically is to not have any crashes. And so to me, that's worth going, we've got to have the right staffing. And that means...
I was on the phone with a friend from my previous career, and we were talking about how DOJ is a contradiction in and of itself, in that we're here to lower the footprint and the amount of inefficiency in government. So let's create an entire illegal arm of the government because it was never formed properly. I think that's the only reason why Marjorie Taylor Greene is now a part of it. So it has some connection to Congress. Not like that's a decent connection to Congress.
Well, it's basically a consulting agency or something now. But I am
but that's illegal. That alone is illegal.
I don't know if it's illegal if they don't have any, because all they can do is recommend stuff to Congress and the president. I don't know if that's illegal.
You have to be authorized and commissioned by Congress, not the president.
I don't think that's entirely true, because presidents
weeks ago.
But presidents, don't they do commissions like this all the time?
No, I covered that 2 weeks ago. You're late. I got to take a break. I'm supposed to be, I told everybody a month ago that I'm going to be doing this much more frequently, and you'll be able to come right back because we're going to be taking more breaks with fewer commercials. And then we're right back to the fights and the discussion. But here I am. We're rambling for 46 minutes now. So 99.1 WDJY, 1340 and 1350, as in 106.1, 102.3 in the Tan Talk Network, 1400 and 107.1 KSHP Las Vegas, WZQR, the UG.media, Biz Growth Collective, Yergs Radio, everything, and the rest of the Mastiff Media Network. We'll be back after this. Hey, what's in your wallet? Well, if you want something that gives you zero fraud liability for unauthorized use, flexible due dates, just look in your wallet or look in mine. Go to CapitalOne.com. Actually, go to my Facebook page, click on the affiliates link, and find Capital One. Use my link to apply today. Capital One. What's that smell? In my studio, it's Aroma by Peter. Scented wax candles with long-lasting wicks that make your place smell amazing. And don't worry, guys. Plenty of scents for you too. For us too. So go to aromabypeter.com. What are you doing later? I'll tell you what I'm doing. I'm going to the gym.
But not just any gym, Momentum Fitness and Wellness. Walk right up to the door. There's a QR code on the door. You can sign up right there. You've got no excuse. But not only that, their equipment is amazing. It's kept up well. It's expanded. There's stretching area. There's CrossFit. There's hardcore training, a dedicated area for stretching, dunk tanks, sauna, everything you need to get that Hernando beach body or keep your Clearwater beach body. You can train with your shirt off, you can scream, you can yell, and you won't be intimidated either. Go to Momentum Fitness and Wellness on US 19 in Bayonet Point, Jasmine Estates. Build the momentum.
Philip Blackett. Do you have a coffee mug? You like your favorite coffee mug? What? Yeah.
It's water, but yeah.
Go to, well, I can put it up here. buyblackett.com/Yergs for 15% off coffee mugs, shirts for the gym. We got to get Matt spring for some sleeveless shirts. This is not one of them, by the way. For those of you checking out the mug of the day, this is not one of them. But I do have two, definitely favorites. buyblackett.com/Yergs for 15% off coffee mugs, patriotic type stuff, or good like mine say something about coffee and my dogs, or wine and my dogs. Good things in life, and not all of it's not. In fact, none of it is like MAGA or anything like that. That's why I was happy to support it, even though Philip's our resident Trump translator. What do you think about the music? Sound pretty good in the background?
Yeah.
All right. So in the time we got left, I wanted to talk about this guy from the Treasury. Have you been looking that up, or what are you looking up?
Well, I was looking up something. I think you're wrong about the thing. Real quick, here's the Doge thing. Just real quick. We don't spend a lot of time on this. Basically, how they're structuring Doge is they're folding in U.S. digital service, which is born of the executive branch. Obama created it. So I don't know where you're saying it's illegal that the president can't create things that...
When it was first founded by Trump, it was done illegally.
Well, but that it wasn't...
I'm not saying that its existence now is illegal.
Right, but it wasn't illegal. Redundant. He just made it up out of his head. And then...
It's not a redundant. It's a hypocrisy. Let's create more government to create less government.
Oh yeah, but I mean, this. I agree. This is maybe a little shady, but I mean, it's all legal. But basically, what really happened, the structure of it is U.S. Digital Service got folded in, is now called Doge, and because it was born of the executive branch, you can't do Freedom of Information Act. It's Presidential Records Act that you have to go through it to get the information from it. And then they also said this is a temporary agency that's going to sunset July 4th, 2026, which then allows them to hire individuals for any length of time in compensation Trump and Musk prefer. And it basically, because they're saying it's going to end, and that because
it's less than 2 year period. Responsibility and ethics in Washington.
I'm not saying I like that. I'm saying it is legal currently the way it's set up. I don't love.
No, that's what you're missing. I'm not saying that currently it is illegal. I'm saying its initial founding, its initial existence was done illegally.
Right.
The so-called the Department of Government Efficiency, or DOGE, is operating in violation of the Federal Advisory Committee Act. That's what I was trying to think of earlier. According to a lawsuit filed by the American Public Health Association, American Federation of Teachers, Minority Veterans of America, Vote, blah, 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 a whole slew of DC think tanks and agencies.
What's the date on that, though, by the way?
January 20th, 2025.
Yeah, and I think they did this on the 21st. So they obviously... Exactly. They couldn't do it on January 20th. I mean, it didn't really exist on January 20th.
Already many Trump, not kickbacks. What am I trying to think? Walkbacks.
But the executive branch can create these kind of, I don't know if they're called.
It's going to do it legally. And here's what it says. Currently, Doge is operating unchecked without authorization or funding from Congress, one thing, and is led by unelected billionaires who are not representative of ordinary Americans.
Right, but there's nothing illegal about that.
Oh, God. I want to get like a mute button on my mic. Those representatives have reportedly already been speaking with agency officials throughout the federal government, and communication is allegedly taking place on Signal, a messaging app for its auto-delete features. Also illegal. You have to retain all kinds of records.
Yeah.
Records Information Act or something like that.
Well, but that's where things are different, though. This falls under the Presidential Records Act, not the Freedom of Information stuff. So there are different
but that's
rules.
the point. You can't circumvent that. And that's what this article says.
Yeah.
The Federal Advisory Committee Act requires that advisory committees follow a specific authorization process, include a balanced membership, have a clear charter, including the scope of the committee's activities, have meetings open to the public, and disclose records to the public. Now, if you're using an app formed specifically for deleting the message that you send back and forth, how is that being transparent to the public?
Yeah, I mean, of course,
It's
no
not.
one could.
Not.
Although I will say this, on
You know
January
that.
before January 20th, they couldn't have an email address either. So if you were doing any sort of lead up to it, I don't know what they would use. Yeah.
But I'll tell you who does have the email address before January 20th. The Committee on the Transition Team. The members of the transition team have government email addresses, contrary to what they were saying about Hillary Clinton.
Yeah. I don't say that contrary. I would say that she did have her own email servers in her house, and that was a danger to our national security.
You know where they were?
I don't care. She shouldn't have had her own
basement. Do you know what you had to go through before you got to the room where the servers were?
I'm not talking about physical access. That's not how you have to get through. You don't have to get to email servers are hacked all the time. That's my problem with it. It's not the physical access part. That's my problem with the documents at Mar-a-Lago.
All I can say, nobody was getting into those servers.
We don't know that. We can never know that. The
Actually,
Chinese government got into the federal employee databases. You don't think they can get into Hillary Clinton's email server?
No, they can't.
I don't believe that. I don't believe that she set it with a private company. It was better security.
I know the people that put that together. They were. I'll just tell you this much. They were not Secret Service. It
was not okay for her to do that, Yergs. Just admit it. It wasn't a smart idea. It was bad. It was a bad idea.
No, it was. I'll bet that server was probably one of the safest ones in the government system.
She never should have sent an official email via those servers. Ever. If she wants to do her private foundation stuff through it, fine. Although, I've got a lot of problems with the corruption between the Clinton Foundation and talk about pay for play, but we don't have to get into that now.
No, I'll tell you that. I know that story. I know exactly what you're talking about there. And we'll talk about that in the next hour because we only got like 3 minutes left.
No, we should talk about stuff that happened this week. No one wants to hear me complain about Hillary Clinton. She's old news.
Well, yeah, exactly. But I will address that. I know what you're talking about when you say pay for play. And those guys got fired immediately.
Oh, no, I mean, I'm not talking about one incident. I'm talking about for 20 years. It was a problem.
Yeah, exactly. And they kept it under wraps.
No, I'm not talking about under wraps. I'm talking the stuff that happened in public eye of, whatever. It's corruption. It's the same kind of corruption that happens with Trump and these billionaires now. It's the same thing.
Bill Clinton had nothing to do with it. He was livid when he found out about it. And he personally fired the guys involved with it. I was there when it happened. The
Clinton Foundation should not have existed while she was Secretary of State. It's corruption. It should not have existed while she was Secretary of State. It was a conflict of interest.
If you're going to bitch about that, we can do a whole season on Jared Kushner and company.
Fine. Yeah, I call that out too, Yergs. I do.
When?
I say that I don't like any of this. It's all corruption when you're paying like the Hunter Biden stuff and the James Biden stuff and the Jared Kushner stuff with Saudi Arabia. All of this stuff is corruption in some way, and I don't like it. All of it. And the Clinton Foundation is another version of that.
So I've got to let everybody know you can join us over on Yerg's Radio, and I definitely suggest you bookmark that address, Yerg's, YERGZ, radio.com. We're growing, but that's the best place for you to stay in touch with us. moving forward. And all the chicas here on Tan Talk, we're only here once a week. And you really need to follow us all 5 days a week. We're now 2 hours on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. This past Wednesday was our first 2-hour show for Wednesdays. And by the end of the spring, we're looking to be 2 hours long Monday through Friday. So, yeah, definitely Yergz, YERGZ, radio.com. You can find Blake at thehomelessconservative.com, Blake at thehomelessconservative.com for Blake Fisher. Matt, when he comes back next week and anytime until then, you can get him at Matt at dailycryptonews.net and info at demurforcongress.com. Check us out coming soon on dnrstudios.com. Derek and Romaine were the Howard Stern and Robin of the gay community on Sirius XM until about 5 or 6 years ago. They closed that channel in their infinite wisdom, and now they have their own network. Go to dnrstudios.com for more information. For anything else about us, go to yergz.com and mastiff.media. That's it for this hour. We'll be back in a little bit. We're going to say goodbye to everybody at, let's see, America One Radio, WDJY, KSHP, and everybody, and everybody else will be. DJY. Yeah, DJY is leaving us. So yeah, those are leaving us. Everybody else, stay here. We'll be back right after this. I have no way to pan that one down. So we're back. Well, I still got music going on in the background. My chill music still going. All right. So 99.1 and America One Radio are gone. K-Shop and the Tan Talk Network are gone. And speaking of the Tan Talk Network being gone, they don't know it yet. But I did actually make this announcement earlier this week, so maybe they do. I don't know. But that was the last episode of Up the Middle on Tan Talk. A bunch of reasons. As a producer of this show, I pay to be on a lot of these stations. And then I sell the advertising that goes on it, and I profit from that advertising, which isn't happening yet because we're still new and so on. I got other bills to pay first before I can pay Blake or me or any of the other people that you hear from. We're only on Tan Talk once a week. All the other networks that we're on now are growing with us, some on their dime. WDJY gave us another hour in this contract, and that's why we're on 2 hours on Wednesday instead of just the one. And so for the amount of money I pay weekly for 1 hour at Tan Talk, I could get 2 hours at K-Shop and therefore be at least Monday through Friday on K-Shop. Not all 2 hours, but at least exposure in a large market for the entire week. I'm not doing that yet because I had recently applied for assistance for here in the house through FEMA, was denied, appealed, was denied again, while I have numerous neighbors who have been not only accepted, but have settled out and been paid, and they're back to living in their fully remodeled houses. I'm nowhere close to that. I also applied for grants that, as you may know, if you've been watching this show or listening to the show, have been halted. Even though the halting, the freeze has been frozen by the courts, And now the whole thing is thawed out. Well, that just doesn't happen overnight. He can stop things overnight, but to get those things started back up takes a while. And so I'm not going to be getting the grant funding that I would have been eligible for. I haven't been approved yet, but now we're basically starting back at square one. So that's a second source of income not happening. And third is because Congress has its head up its ass. They haven't been approving funds for small business loans, like I also applied for back in November. So I don't want to leave Tan Talk, but essentially for the time being, that's what's happening. Because I can't. When we talk about, I think it's $150 an hour, every month has at least 4 Fridays in it. So that's $600 or $750. And the issue we have with that is that I don't have $600 or $750 anymore. That's gone. But also an advertiser, a sponsor, isn't going to, a local sponsor here in the Tampa Bay area, isn't going to just up and say, yeah, I'll be on your show once a week to maybe get somebody lucky enough to hear my commercial and then support my business. Advertising takes time. Advertising is a process, and marketing is a process that is repetitive, which is why we're not accepting any stations anymore. UG.media, hope you're listening. Our friends from across the pond, we're trying to convince them to get us on the air there more than once a week. We're actually, to be fair, we're there twice a week. But the 2:30, I think it is, show on Tuesdays is a repeat of today's show. So we're trying to be live more frequently. And I know as a fact, the UK, like so many other countries, because I've seen some of the demonstrations, I've never demonstrated here in the United States against anything that Justin Trudeau has done in Canada or that Boris what's-his-name has done in the UK. Our president is getting demonstrations against his actions on every single continent in the world, except for like Antarctica. And I think the people down there are just shivering. But we're trying to push the UG.media to taking us at least twice, maybe even 3 times a week. But they've been great. So I'm not going to damage that. If they can only do one, they can only do one. But they also don't charge us. They're happy to have us on board. We also support them and share their posts on social media, so on, cross-promote, that kind of thing. But with the Tan Talk Network, it's just we're not getting the exposure that we were supposed to be getting after 6 months. DJY in Atlanta, we've got 25, well, not anymore because they're only for the first hour, but on Mondays and Wednesdays when we're on for 2 hours, Tuesdays and Thursdays, and the first hour today, we had 25,000 people listening to us. Few other stations are doing that for us. Tan Talk said we would get 30. Then all of a sudden we were never getting any Nielsen ratings reports. Well, how do we know we're getting 30? So we had to make an intelligent business decision, and we had to stop that contract. So that's that. I know Blake's backstage now, having done some research during those past 7 minutes. What'd you find? What do you want to take off with on hour number 2?
I mean, probably talk about the nominees. I feel like are probably worth talking about that we heard from this week.
Like I said in the beginning, or I've said before, I've seen smarter cabinets at IKEA.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not as harsh on the whole of the cabinet as you are. I mean, there are definitely it's very clear.
A chain is only as strong as its weakest link. And when you've got multiple weak links or dangerous ones, that's not good.
Yeah, but I mean, that's what I'm saying. But you're painting the whole thing as these are also dumb. I mean, I just don't think Doug Berman is a bad choice for Secretary for the Interior. I think he'll be fine. I think that, and I think Marco Rubio is actually fantastically qualified.
I think yes, he might be a good one, but
you know, and so I think a lot of it's all the ones that we don't know their names. You know what I mean? Like you have to be a wonk to know any of. I mean, Marco Rubio may not.
Or we do know their names, and what we know about them is scary.
Yeah, but I mean, to me, the ones that are, you know, everyone's up in arms about, which one of them's already confirmed: Pete Hegseth, Robert F. Kennedy Jr., and Kash Patel is not cabinet. But
back up a second. Pete Hegseth was actually took 2 votes to do it.
Barely made it. He had to get Vance had to tie break.
Yeah, and just think, if Pennsylvania Democrat John Fetterman votes against it, we don't have Pete Hegseth.
Yeah.
Now, you're a guy who is just basically for giving a president a essentially blanket, you know, authorization as long as they're what was it? As long as they're qualified.
Well, yeah, it's like I hedge between two different things.
Would you have voted for or against Pete Hegseth, and why or why not?
You know, the Hegseth thing is interesting because on one hand, I do think the Pentagon needs a shakeup. I think that it needs the fact that it can't pass an audit. There's all sorts of problems with the management of the Pentagon, and I think it's really important. So on one hand, I don't think he's qualified to actually run that organization. I don't think he's ever shown us that he has any experience in that. And I'm not saying experience is always necessary, because there have been people that came in and surprised us. But specifically, you know, like for example, Nikki Haley would be one where I'd go, ambassador to the UN. People were like, well, she doesn't know anything about this. She is a governor. What does she know about foreign policy? And I think that most people were really surprised that she did the job well. But she also wasn't having to manage 3 million employees. You know, that's a different job than being Secretary of Defense.
Yeah.
I probably would have said that his moral failures, and not just that they were moral failures, but they were such blatant judgment failures, would really concern me with Pete Hegseth. At the same time, he is less concerning to me than Robert F. Kennedy Jr. and Tulsi Gabbard, because I think they are individually more dangerous at their places. Kash Patel, actually, I don't like him, but I also hate the FBI. So it's kind of this weird. I don't think he's the right person to run it or the right person to fix it, but I also think that he couldn't possibly make it worse. I think the FBI has.
He could make it. I'm going to stick up for the Bureau here, because
by all means,
I never liked the FBI either. And I think a lot of it was the environment that I was put in, because at the Secret Service, of course, you don't like the FBI. You're the Secret Service.
Yeah, and this is common in law enforcement, right? There's a lot of interagency.
No, it's not. You know, I'm happy and proud to say that during the course of my career, I've seen a lot of that go away. I've seen a lot of it continued unnecessarily, but I have seen a lot of it go away. And I think the FBI was instrumental in that. Yes, the Bureau likes themselves a good old-fashioned press conference. But in large part, when you also publish a list of the top 10 most wanted felons and fugitives in the world, press conferences are kind of if not a useful tool, they're a necessary evil.
Right. But I mean, Comey's was frankly against all Comey's before the 2020 or 2016 election is frankly goes against every guideline that the Department of Justice had for an FBI director at the time. And I think that it was wrong of him to do it. It was wrong of him to think that he alone was the person that could like decide what to announce and what to not announce and things. And frankly, like, he just went against all the guidelines that DOJ had for him. So that's just one example of the sort of look at me, I'm important, that I think I mean, that's just one little thing. I think the FBI has much problems.
That's also an attitude that you see a lot there. and you see it you see it even more at the Secret Service.
Yeah.
There's this A-type personality, I got this type of attitude, but then we turn around and tell people that we can't complete our mission without the help of this, that, and the other thing. And then we don't want to bring those people in when it ultimately comes time to it. And then things like Butler, Pennsylvania happen.
I think the biggest problem with the FBI is that it's taken on it has too many missions, and it's too split up. I think the FBI really needs to be split into like 3 different agencies. I think we need a federal law enforcement agency. I think we need an anti-terrorism agency. I think they should be separate, though.
That's what helped grow the government in the first place. For example, and as well, this is the reason. The FBI director and the CIA director have a long history of having to work together, but not wanting to.
Right.
And
based on the nature of saying CIA can't do stuff in the United States, you have to liaise with the FBI to ever actually do something together, right?
That's a misconception. There's plenty of things that the CIA can and does do in the United States. What their charter says is that they're not allowed to work against the United States, as some intelligence services in other countries are instrumental in implementing a coup. What the CIA doesn't like is publicity.
Right. They do not do press conferences.
That's what they do, is hide. And it wasn't until recent years where they and the FBI learned to play off each other's strengths. Let the CIA do the shit in the background. We're not on terrestrial anymore, I don't think, but screw it. Let the CIA do those things in the background that they do, and let the FBI take credit for it. One of the biggest successes, I think, in the intelligence community was the fall of the Berlin Wall and the Soviet Union. Now, if you look at history, you're going to say, but wait a minute. The CIA never predicted that. And that's going down in history as a huge failure of the CIA. Really? Do you know that for sure?
Well, we don't know everything the CIA knows.
Well, let me ask you this. You're at the CIA, you're an analyst, and you're looking at lifestyle and economics and government policy and so on of the now former Soviet Union. And you say, is this really going to work? And you make that prediction and you write your analysis, essentially what we in college would call a term paper of sorts. And it's actually published like a book at the CIA and kept at the CIA. You're a published author
that no one can read unless they're in the CIA.
Literally, an entire city is going to read this, and nobody knows it. So, but we also have a saying in government, in the old Wild West, in the mafia, 3 people can keep a secret if 2 of them are dead. So what are you going to do if you're the CIA and you know that the business model, the very business model of Soviet communism is setting up to fail? Are you going to publish it in the New York Times? Are you going to take that paper, that book that you just published, and put it on Publishers Clearinghouse? Or are you just going to sit back and giggle? Oh, yeah, we're a bunch of fat old white men that didn't see this coming. As they sit back sipping whiskey in their office. One of the only offices in the government system where you can still smoke and drink at the office. I think they knew the fall of the Soviet Union was coming. I think they did their job and kept their mouth shut and let it happen. And that makes
possibly, yeah.
That makes a hell of a lot more sense than one of the strongest and most advanced intelligence services in history not seeing that.
I mean, I do think we get it wrong plenty. I mean, you could look at, weapons of mass destruction. Our intelligence agencies certainly ended up having that wrong, and so did other people's.
He's now passed away, but Ambassador Joe Wilson was an ambassador to Niger, a country in Africa wrongly called Niger, wrongly by the Bush administration called Niger, is actually Niger because it's French, went over at the request of his wife, Valerie Plame.
Oh, yeah.
To do an inspection. And his analysis, keep in mind, he's an actual expert on this country. And his analysis was, if these trucks came through with the rods and yellow cake uranium and so on, it wouldn't be like a day of heavy traffic. I think he said it would be more like a celebration of Independence Day, their very first one. Everybody would know that these trucks came through Niger. There's no way those trucks were anywhere near Niger. So that's when that didn't, of course, fit the Trump, or excuse me, the Bush narrative.
Yeah, but I mean, I think the important thing to remember is that we were arguing about with other countries of whether we should invade Iraq or not. Everyone thought he had weapons of mass destruction. France, Germany were not saying he didn't have them. They were saying we're not for invading him yet. And so I think we all got that wrong, and it's because Saddam Hussein was trying to project that he had them.
They were getting that all of them were getting that information from us.
Yeah. Well, I mean, they have intelligence too.
Until we put out that it was bad info.
Yeah, I mean, I think intelligence does get things wrong sometimes, for sure.
Yeah.
I mean,
intentional, because
I think they just get it wrong sometimes too.
Junior wanted to clean up Daddy's war.
I mean, you can talk about the motivations, but you can't know that it wasn't just genuine mistakes too. I mean, like, my point is they get things wrong too. We got 9/11 wrong too. We didn't see that warning, and everyone says, how can you not connect these dots? And so, like, we get things wrong. Like, our intelligence gets things wrong for sure.
Well, the other thing that people jump to conclusions about getting things wrong is that we're in an open society. There's a lot of secrets we would love to keep that we can't or can't access because of the fact that we're in a free society. If this was a police state, like it's becoming, you're going to see a much more successful intelligence community, except this one doesn't want that type of success.
Yeah, I mean, but basically, I do think the FBI needs some pretty serious reforms. I think it is due
under no circumstances is some.
No, I don't think he's the right guy for it. I also think he
sat there and lied.
Yeah, I mean, of course. Now, I don't think Democrats did a particularly good job either with him.
People are going to say that he didn't lie. He never answered it. No.
Yeah.
You know damn well that they're asking. He was asked if he knew, and I don't remember the guy's name either because I wasn't on a show 8 times.
Oh, I know who you're talking about. The podcast he was on like 8 times. Yeah.
Yeah, 8 times. And
but
he didn't who the senator was talking about.
But you know, the problem is that the Democrats often sat there and grandstanded for their whole time instead of actually letting him answer the question or not answer the question.
And this is why I said 2-3 weeks ago, these people need to be able to politically able to vote their conscience. They don't have the votes for it. Whatever his name is, Douche Patel is going to be the next director of the FBI.
Yeah, I think he will, but I actually don't think. I would bet right now that maybe not bet, but I think at least one of RFK Jr. or Tulsi Gabbard's not getting through. I think that you saw some people that were vocally yesterday, senators quoted going, yeah, I really don't like that answer she gave. I mean, the fact that she wouldn't ever.
I suspect, and that's because of a review I read yesterday. I might still be able to get that. I think it's actually in the show notes. Let me look. There were Republican senators during Kennedy's yesterday session and probably the one before.
Yeah.
Who are just putting their face in their hands and just trying to hide.
Yeah. And some of the toughest questioning for Robert Jr. came from, is it Cornyn? I think is he he's a doctor, I think from Louisiana. I might have that detail wrong, but, just kind of calling him out for some of the stuff that, and actually doing a good job of saying, you're wrong about this. You've lied about this. You've said this. And I was a doctor. I did clinical trials for that. You've said it was, I think the problem is that what Democrats have been trying to do, which Democrats are in shambles, but if you're on one of these things, you should at least have the wherewithal to go, okay, if my job is to ask questions that clarify that this person's not qualified for this job, you need to be like, there were only a couple of them that did a good enough job at that, of letting them sort of like, do you have an answer for this, and kind of forcing them to have one. I don't like when people go, here's what Democrats have been doing for most of these confirmations hearings that I've seen. They go, okay, blah, blah, blah. I want you to answer this question in the form of yes or no. And they know they're asking a question that's more nuanced than answering it yes or no. And so when the person says, I'm not going to answer that with a yes or no because it's more complicated than that, they go, okay, I'm just going to take that as you won't agree with that. That is, I get why they do it. It's great for your clip.
When not only that, they're at least trying to make some, and again, I'll say it again. I wish everybody there, and for this, I'll actually credit Fetterman. He didn't vote along party. He made a poor choice, but he didn't vote along party lines. And
which I wish more people would do. I wish there was there's just not very many people that are willing to do that. Now, Mitch McConnell
do it when it's somebody like Pete Hegseth that damn well is otherwise going to get confirmed and shouldn't be. Don't vote for the guy and then be the one that causes him to get confirmed.
Yeah, but he didn't know that was how that was going to go necessarily.
And they know exactly what's going to happen.
I think within their caucus, but I don't think he knew within the Republican caucus that Mitch McConnell would.
They know. Why do you think, what's his name, J.D. Vance, was on the Hill ready to make that tie vote anyway?
Well, because he knew he'd lost enough. Because he knew he lost enough Republicans.
15 times that Kamala Harris was sitting there waiting on Capitol Hill to make the tie vote.
Yeah, but I think that's because
they know who's going to vote what before they even walk into that chamber.
Yeah, but I know they know that within their party, but I don't know that they always know that within the other party.
They know.
Well, but then why was it suspenseful when Senator McCain went out there and did the thumbs down thing? Why was that suspenseful?
Because he made it known he wasn't decided.
Right. So my point is, I think that can happen here too. I don't think we knew Mitch McConnell wasn't. I mean, maybe we did, but the point is, I'm okay. I think Kash Patel is going to get through because I don't think Democrats did a good enough job at hammering him on the things that.
Well, one of the things they
definitely said
that would be it there. That's what's or nuts not being confirmed. We officially. Why is that so foggy?
Oh, and by the way, this brings up my point that I brought up during the first set of Hegseth's nominations. I think some of these politicians are not willing to call out that Kash Patel might have been trying to sell books and podcasts and stuff and was being extreme in rhetoric, because they can't call him out for that because they know they're doing it right there in the same proceeding. I think that's the thing that we, the people, need to realize more often, is that all of this is performative politics. What the Democrats are doing on the thing when they're not letting him answer, they're trying to fundraise for their next election.
Oh, these are the kids that, those are the figure skaters.
Are we for sure? Is that confirmed? Is that just a meme that someone made? I've not seen any names released other than the Russian couple that were championship skaters.
No,
I've not seen any of the other names released. That was as of last night, but I've
seen all 9 crew members.
I doubt everyone in that picture was on that plane. I would very doubt that.
The one isn't. One, if this is the whole team, it's I'm gonna guess.
What's the source on that?
One of the guys was kicked off the flight because his dog was too big.
Right, but I'm saying I'm not believing this picture that you're putting up that says all these people were on that flight, because the coincidence of them all being in a picture together.
This is at the. Have you ever been to an athletic match at all?
Well, I know, but we don't know that all those people whose faces are in that picture were on that plane. We do not know that.
When you go to a figure skating competition, you're on one team.
We've not released the names. I'm not using this as a source, Yergs. Until those names are public, I'm not using this as a source of these people. These kids died.
Well, I'll tell you what, it's done by Adam Kinzinger and Liz Cheney. I'm thinking they're pretty well connected.
They put this picture together.
Liz Cheney, Adam Kinzinger.
Against Trump. That's not then. This is a Facebook group, Yergs. That's not Adam. That's not Liz Cheney or Adam Kinzinger. That's a Facebook group. It's neither one of them. That's not either one of them. I would not believe that picture.
I think this is the one that's actually theirs. They've done this. This has been up for a while. I think this is the one that's actually theirs. Anyway, what I'm looking for is there was one of the votes, one of the confirmations, the Democrats actually boycotted. They didn't show up. And as a result, all Republicans went in favor, and it got whoever it was that they didn't do that for got confirmed.
By the way, it was Bill Cassidy. That's who I was trying to say earlier. I had that wrong.
Yeah, this is the other thing, and this is your buddy, but he fired the head of the Aviation Safety Committee, or gutted the committee and fired the administrator of the FAA. So this is not all DEI.
Well, yeah, but I mean, his transportation secretary got nominated that morning, or got confirmed that morning. So I don't think that the Trump administration really could have had a lot to do with this.
Actually, kudos to that secretary for jumping in and heading to the FAA and doing the things that he did, from the command post of the FAA Wednesday night. Yeah. One in a row. And to be clear, I'm not against the entire Trump cabinet. I think the guy that's the head of the CIA is a good choice. Why you would demote him, I have no idea, because in the first Trump administration, he was the DNI or the
maybe just wanted a different job. I don't know. I can see why I would want to be the head of the CIA. That sounds fun.
But you're already the head. This is DNI, and this is what I was getting to earlier. The DNI was created under the Bush administration because there needed to be some head in the intelligence community. There already was. He was the director of Central Intelligence. That's why his name or her name is Director of Central Intelligence.
Yeah.
You're not just in charge of the CIA. You are in charge and oversight of the entire intelligence community.
Right. But unfortunately, after 9/11, we felt like that was not enough.
No, the FBI didn't like that. The FBI director wanted to be in charge of some certain things and didn't want to play nice for the longest amount of years. And so when that was finally recognized, Bush said, okay, I'm going to put somebody in charge of both of you. At the same time, he too was saying that he was going to decrease the size of government. And how'd that work out for you?
Yeah, all we've gotten is more spending for the last 25
So I'm looking for, and this is too far back. I know it's not. I'm looking for, there's it's another Facebook meme, but it's a group photo of a bunch of Democratic senators at like a press conference saying about how they see, we don't do this about Italy here. If you're looking at what's on the screen now, that's an effigy of the Statue of Liberty in chains as a prisoner. And we're a nation of immigrants, and here we are with a president who has 3 wives, each one of whom was an immigrant.
But we haven't even gotten to immigration stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think one of these is going down. I think that, and as far as you asked how I would vote, I mean, I think for the most part, I do think you give the president his cabinet unless they like disqualify themselves somehow. Like I said, I think that when you're dealing with national intelligence stuff, I do think you have to be concerned about blackmail. I think that that's absolutely something that you have to consider. And I think that specifically with Robert F. Kennedy Jr., he is so wildly... He's trying to dodge being a conspiracy theorist is crazy because he's literally, it doesn't matter if he claims he's a truth teller. He's not. He's lying all the time, and it actually is costing people their lives. And to me, that is, and plus here's the reason. If I'm a conservative, there's nothing conservative about Robert F. Kennedy Jr. at all. Not that I'm saying everyone has to be. He
is there for the same reason that Jill Stein is liked by Donald Trump, and he said it. I like Donald Trump. She takes 100% of votes away from Kamala Harris.
Well, and to be fair, Trump owes possibly part of his victory. Potentially is absolutely. I mean, look, I don't believe that there are single reasons Donald Trump won the election, but I think without a doubt, a factor in it was Robert F. Kennedy dropping out and endorsing him, and basically this is the payback for that. This is what RFK Jr. wants, and Trump is. I will give him credit for this. He pays back favors better than he pays his contractors. So,
yeah, but that's the thing is though and you said it yourself. You don't think that he and Musk are going to last too long?
No. Not with those two egos.
As soon, but even more than that, as soon as you no longer are a benefit to him, you're out.
Yeah, but I think the bigger problem with Musk is the ego. Somebody. I think the second the spotlight's getting taken away from him.
I want you to try to find somebody for me. Where's Tim Scott at?
Good question. I don't know.
You know, and he was rah Donald.
Yeah, but here's the thing.
The election was over, and he didn't need Tim Scott's state anymore.
You're right, but here's the difference. Tim Scott's not a billionaire, so that hurts him with this crew. And I don't really think Tim Scott did anything other than be a cheerleader, and that's not enough of a transaction for Trump to feel like he owes someone something. He feels like he owes Tulsi Gabbard. He feels like he owes RFK Jr.
What does he owe Tulsi Gabbard?
I think similarly that I think the pulling in, I think he thinks, and I'm not sure that there's any data that proves this. I think pulling in Tulsi Gabbard and Robert Kennedy Jr. specifically, he thinks, just like he thinks TikTok is good because maybe he won the youth vote. I mean, it doesn't actually have to be true for him to believe it, but I do think that there is a degree of people that think that Robert Kennedy Jr. and Tulsi Gabbard gave some permission to the independent of people being going to go, well, look, he's working with Democrats, he's working with Republicans. And if you just look at it surface level, I can see why some voters would go, yeah. And so I think that and plus, honestly, frankly, she's hot. That's probably part of the reason. I think most of the picks are either good on camera or there's a loyalty problem. There's a loyalty like payback situation. So RFK Jr. is that. And I think he wants mouthpieces. I think RFK Jr., that's all he's done is interviews and stuff for his career, essentially, is he's a publicist for these lawsuits that he enriches himself on, which I'm not saying some of these lawsuits aren't founded. I'm just saying that is how he's making money, is like he's the face for these lawsuits and these law firms where he gets kickback on it. And I'm not saying there's anything shady about that. I'm just saying that is what he's been doing. And I think that one of these two are not going to get through. I think that you're going to see there's enough Republicans in the Senate that take security and intelligence really seriously that I think it's probably Tulsi Gabbard that doesn't get it, because I think that she doesn't have actually the voting constituency or the sort of groundswell that the Maha crowd has behind it. So I'm not terribly concerned that people are worried about a backlash again. And I don't think Trump would particularly care either if Tulsi doesn't make it through. He's not going to like fight for her, but he might for RFK Jr. and make a bigger deal of it because there are more people that are outspoken about the goals of his sort of crusade about making foods healthier. And look, RFK Jr. can be right about we need healthier food and still be wrong about a whole lot of other things. And my question for most of the people that are all on board the RFK Jr. train right now is, why was, Michelle Obama trying to make school lunches healthier not a thing you got on, but it is when RFK Jr. does it? And I think it's kind of obvious what it is. It's that, well, RFK Jr. is on our team now because he was a Trump and Michelle Obama was on a different team. And that's really what this boils 100%. Down to, is team sports, which is stupid.
And yeah, 100%. And don't forget that Michelle Obama and Donald Jessica don't like each other at all. Like not even a little.
Right. But my point is she was trying to do this in 2010 or 12 or something. Mm-hmm. Why was there? I didn't see this groundswell of moms then.
Get up and move.
Yeah. So I think it's probably Tulsi Gabbard that goes down. I do not think that they'll both get through with, because like I said, there's only
couple of quick shout outs. We got some people listening in from Toronto, Canada on Yerg's Radio. This is an interesting one. Welcome to, I don't know, it's in Arabic. the map changes when you switch over. But welcome to those of you listening in Iran. It's got to be a military base. I hope, or maybe not. I don't know. It's
it's got to be a military base. I don't think Iran lets their normal citizens have access to the full internet.
That's a good point.
Pretty sure they're one of those.
Let me see if I can get a Donald Trumpian map of Iran when it's in English, the official language of the world. Let me see here. I am going to guess that was where'd you go? Oh, that was Tabriz, because it was due east of the lake. Where'd that go? Down here. Yeah, that's Tabriz. Shout out to and again, that's got to be a military base. So shout out to you guys there. Let's see, an hour and 40 minutes ago, whatever time that was, your time.
Beats me.
Every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, or excuse me, every Monday through Friday at that time, presuming it's you're still the same day. If you're an American base, then it's 11 a.m. Eastern. Monday through Friday. Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. We're now 2 hours, but the show starts at 11 Monday through Friday. So yeah, welcome. Shout out to you. Thanks for joining. Toronto, Canada, London, England. That's awesome because London's joining this. I'm looking at the map for Jurg's Radio. Don't forget that on Fridays you also have the UG. I don't know what UG stands for. I forget, but it's think the underground .media. That's the site that you can go to on Fridays, 4 p.m. local time to catch us live there. But don't forget, we're Monday through Friday on Jurg's Radio, and you can go to mastiff.media to find out what social media platforms you can watch the video and watch my ugly ass do this on video. What else? New York City, Washington, D.C., good crowd in D.C. That's kind of a usual. L.A. and San Diego. And look at this. Are you listening to us right now? Is this you?
What, me?
Yeah. Did you playing like in the background? Like
no.
When we go to commercial,
I don't think so. No, just up on my screen. All right.
Oklahoma City.
Shout out to the Okie.
And a bunch of other usuals. Thanks to everybody. Those of you, some on the coastline of the Gulf of Mexico.
And or America, either way. Or just the Gulf that the rest of us call it. I've not said the full term of that in my life, I don't think.
I just say that I'm on the Gulf side.
Just say the Gulf. I mean, like, I'm always like, the Gulf Coast. That's like what I'm saying when I go to Florida or something. I've not said Gulf of Mexico in a very long time.
But yeah, so anyway, shout out to all of them. Then let's see what else. Everybody listening on Up the Middle Radio Show. If you want to watch, those of you listening, if you want to watch, there's video on Facebook for our one page, Up the Middle Radio Show.
And we're very handsome, in case you were wondering.
Yeah, until next week when Matt gets back.
Matt's got muscles, actually. The ladies might really like looking at Matt.
Oh, I see pictures of myself when I was 230 pounds and 10% body fat. I want me. What's that guy from Silence of the Lambs? I broke me so hard.
That was a pretty good impression.
Talk TV 24 and Up the Middle are two YouTube channels, Jurg's Media on Twitch, and my personal Facebook page, Ross Jurg's Jurger. I can put that up on the screen. Search that, not Ross Jurger. I don't do it to my personal profile anymore, but to my professional page. We're doing that because I was, I think I might be able to go back to it. But a week ago, I was suspended from TikTok for doing something. I tried to go back to that spot in the episode and find out what exactly it was that I did. We were late getting on video. It wasn't until like 20 after 11 that I realized I was not broadcasting the video. I was just doing radio. And so I'm like, oh crap, press play, get streaming. And it was for like the first 5 minutes, I'm getting everybody caught up. What the hell can I do in 5 minutes of replay where I'm going to do something that TikTok finds objectionable? Except, of course, talk badly about Donald Trump. And so they gave me a strike and a 1 week suspension.
But you got no explanation of why?
0. And all I got was that my appeal was denied.
I will say this. I think that this happened to me on Twitter, actually. It
wasn't. This was a week after they came back on the air, so to speak, from having kiss Donald Trump's ass hard enough.
I had a similar problem at Twitter several years ago where it was literally for my music podcast, and they just suspended the account, and but it didn't really give an explanation. It said but I was like, I've literally not tweeted yet on this account. How did I? But I never could get anything with support. And then like they send me an email like 9 months later. Okay, we reinstated your account. I was like, well, I've already created another one now. Now I've got to go back to that one. And it was just funny because I was like, I think it's literally just sometimes these things are so algorithm not
I think a
real
lot of
people.
it is automated. Yeah. 100%.
And then they have no support staff to actually go through and look at that stuff. And so anyway, it's kind of a mess. But of course, I don't think TikTok should be active right now. And I think that Trump should actually enforce the law. I don't think he has the power to just not do things that Congress and the Supreme Court have told him he needs to do. But again,
the one argument for those who say that you should not be banning TikTok is that the damage is already done.
It doesn't matter. If Congress passes a law, you enforce the law. That's how the Constitution works.
That, and there's also the issue of people are going to continue to join TikTok.
Also, if you don't think that, if you didn't see the message that came up on TikTok when they went offline and then came back on, that specifically said, yay, Donald Trump. Do you like, if you're a Democrat, let's say you're anti-Donald Trump, and it's not hard to say for you, Yergs, do you like that a social media company controlled by the Chinese Communist Party got to give Donald Trump a pat on the back, right? That's the propaganda that we're worried about. They already did it this week, and they're saying, oh, that's hypothetical. They won't do it. I'm like, they did it last week. Now imagine if they invade Taiwan, what kind of messages you're going to start seeing on TikTok. I think it's, and plus, like I said,
do you finally admit that we're at a world war?
We're not at world war. No, I mean, it's this at best.
What about a civil war? And that's the one I'm seeing all over the place, by the way.
The closest analogy to something that's happened before, I think you could say we are in some sort of Cold War with China, except that you can't actually compare it to the Cold War with Russia because it's just so incredibly different in the sense that our economies are entwined. That wasn't the case with Russia. I think Cold War is the closer thing that I would say because so far nothing's hot. I think the problem is that I don't think this has to go to World War III to be really bad. Obviously, if China, starts sending missiles to allies, that's a different problem. Or invades Taiwan, that's a discussion. I think there are reasonable people on both sides of the, do we defend Taiwan, do we not? I think that's a reasonable argument to have. But until our troops are fighting Russia, China, Iran, or North Korean troops, no, I don't consider. And by the way, I'd say the same thing with other major powers. If France is fighting North Korea or something, and that's on multi fronts, then we're in a World War III. But there's no military action happening right now.
That's already happening with Israel and Iran.
But even Israel and Iran is mostly it's really Iran's proxies in Israel. The only thing that's happened is Israel's.
That's my point.
Yeah.
It's not that we're in military versus military in uniform and fighting by what was it? Not NATO. Was it NATO Accords or what is it?
NATO
doesn't use hollow points, for example.
Well, was it NATO at the time in World War II? I also just don't think World War III looks like World War II. We've got nuclear powers, and it's just
that's the point. That it's different, and that's why we're also at civil war. It's not the blue and the gray and the north and the south.
Yeah, but I just don't. I see less evidence.
That Daddy's talking.
I see left evidence for the Civil War.
Daddy Kamala is talking. It's right versus wrong. And that's why when you say about, some of the things that we're talking about now, and am I surprised? No, I'm not. Because I never thought, I was at a gym in DC when Donald Trump passed Hillary Clinton back in 2016. And I'm standing there in a towel in a locker room. And I remember seeing him go ahead. And we just all stood there and looked at each other with like this really dumbfounded feeling and numbness. And when I experienced personally some of the things that I did during the course of the Trump administration, not to mention the S9 things that they've done publicly, like there's no way this guy's getting reelected ever.
Yeah, and I said the same thing after January 6th.
And here we are.
Of course, I didn't realize the senators would be so feckless and enforcing. But look, I don't think that means we're in a civil war just because we're very partisan right now. I just don't think that translates. I think,
but I mean, and this is another thing. I forget who I had this conversation with. I said, maybe it was you. I said, do you remember when we thought George W. Bush was the one that divided the country?
Well, but that's what we get is that we like people call Bush Hitler too. So
there he sits aside of Hillary Clinton in church.
Yeah, but that's the problem with partisan politics and tribal politics is that
I never even considered. In fact, I voted for Bush twice.
Yeah, but a lot of people on the left called him Hitler.
No,
just like they called Bush before him Hitler and Reagan before him Hitler, and it wears off.
On the far left.
No, it was all over the media. It was all over. I mean, like everyone called him evil. Everyone said that. I mean, like Joe Biden himself said Mitt Romney wants to put you all back in chains to a group of black people. That is ridiculous to say about Mitt Romney.
It's crazy, Uncle Joe.
I don't care. That is an insane thing to say about Mitt Romney. And here's the thing.
I'm not saying it was a good thing to say.
It was insane.
Didn't say that.
But it diminishes everything you say about Trump when you said all these bad things about other people. And here comes someone that's actually bad, and no one's going to believe you. You're the boy who cried wolf. And look, Republicans have the same problem. They called everyone a communist.
I actually got a list of things that I said was going to happen. That's happening. And there was just something else last night that I'm like, Jesus Christ, now that's going, and I forget what it is. Oh, that pisses me off.
Yeah, but I would say you're closer on the World War III thing than the Civil War thing. I see no evidence that
I think I'm closer on the Civil War thing.
Well, but what do you think has happened?
I've got neighbors during the Biden administration that hung their American flags upside down.
Yeah, but where do you think the divide is?
Trump versus not Trump.
See, I don't think that's the divide. I think in this populist moment, if there's a divide, it's populism versus elite and institutions and people versus institutions and people versus experts.
A lot of the populists, like Christian nationalists, that's on Trump's side.
Well, but what about the people that are celebrating a CEO's murder for a healthcare company? Like to me,
but you say that's populist. I don't think that's when I say
that's populist.
I think there's a large group that's doing that.
I think it's a pretty large group.
There's not a large
on the left and the right
that's celebrating that.
There's a pretty large group. I mean, there was people on cable news networks celebrating it and saying they felt joy with it about it. I mean, this is
that's unfortunate.
I think that's the bigger divide I see. I mean, I see the right left thing too, but I don't see that. Like I said, it's just tribal politics. There's no real issue.
There's people on the right that are celebrating Brian Thompson's murder, assassination.
Yeah, there were absolutely. It's the populist people. It's the sort of part of that MAGA coalition that is. Look, that's what populism does. I mean, it doesn't matter if it's right or left.
Yeah, no, it's. I still say it's more MAGA versus the world.
Well, I know, but my point is, what's the issue? Like the issue was slavery in the Civil War and states trying to secede from the Union because of it. And I don't think there's
It was first a reservation of the Union. Slavery didn't come into it like till halfway through the war.
No, slavery was absolutely the reason the South seceded is because they didn't want the North to be able to tell them they couldn't have slaves.
It was then they wouldn't call it. They wouldn't call the American Civil War the war of to keep the slaves.
No, but I mean, it was to keep the Union together.
They call it the war of Northern aggression.
Yeah, but it wasn't Northern aggression. It was the fact that the South wanted to leave the Union because they wanted to have slaves. Their states' rights that they were fighting for was to have slaves.
You know, this is what my degree is in, right?
Well, I know, but like to say that this was Northern aggression, I think is ridiculous. I think the South.
That's what my neighbors call it today.
Well, I think that's a little revisionist.
This year, during Martin Luther King Day, I knew of 3 Confederate flags that were flying within 1 mile of my house.
Yeah, I think the Confederate flag is a traitor flag.
Less than that. On Martin Luther King Day, at that same distance, that number of Confederate flags doubled to include my next door neighbor.
Yeah, I think. I mean, look, you have the freedom to do that.
Was an accident?
No, I don't think it was an accident.
On Martin Luther King's holiday.
No, I think look, I'm not defending. I'm saying the Confederate flag is a traitor flag. I don't think we should have it. I don't think we should be renaming bases based on Confederate generals. They are traitors. They were traitors of the Union. Like, I don't think we should celebrate the Confederacy at all. I think that it's ridiculous. I think if you want to fly a flag, you have the freedom to do it. I'm not going to say we restrict it. But I also don't think that there's any celebratory.
But still, if you're going to say that you are a part of this country, there are rules for flying the American flag.
Right, but no one follows
You
them.
fly the American flag upside down, like plenty of my neighbors did during the Biden administration, because they don't like the president.
Yeah, I think it's foolish, but
yes,
you're right.
Statement, and I'm not going to say that you're under arrest for flying the flag upside down. I'm going to say you're an asshole, because that's not what you fly that flag upside down for.
Yeah, I mean, I would agree with that, but I also am like, if you want to burn it, that's fine too.
It's not about agreeing or disagreeing. This is policy. This is actually federal law.
It's not law.
It is. It's federal law.
It's not law. You can fly a flag upside down.
Bet you that pizza that I paid you a couple weeks ago.
If it was law, why would they not be arrested for it? It's not a law that you can't fly a flag upside down. There are guidelines for government flying the flag upside down, but it's not. It doesn't control individual citizens. But you also can't wear an American flag on a T-shirt or hold it horizontally over a football field or wear it as a lapel pin. There's all these other guidelines too that we break all the time. So my point is that the flag code is a flag code. And I'm all for respecting it, but I also believe in free speech. If you want to burn it, okay, I disagree with you. If you want to fly it upside down, I disagree with you. I also think that you should reserve that for actually being in distress. For example, you're in a dangerous situation. You're trying to actually signal to someone that you are in distress. I think that's what I would save it for, because that's what it's supposed to be for. So same reason I don't believe in wearing a gun on your hip, because I feel like it kind of defeats the purpose of concealed carry. If I'm a bad guy and I see you with the gun on your hip, you're the first person I'm shooting. To me, that makes no sense. It doesn't mean it's not your right. I just think that it's a foolish idea.
My entire career, I bought my dad Secret Service hats, and I'm like, you can't wear them anywhere, right? He's like, well, what do you mean? I'm like, if you're in a 7-Eleven when it gets held up, and you see that star on your forehead, you're getting shot.
Or people that put the Glock sticker on the back of their truck, I'm like, your car is going to get broken into. It's like, this is just, there's some wisdom in doing these things. But yeah, there's a flag code, but we break the flag code all the time.
Number 4 USC 55 1 through 10.
What does it say?
That's the I don't know. It doesn't say. It just says that's what it is. Like, well, tell me what it says. Yeah. Oh, there it is. Okay. I don't know. That's like so you're right. There are plenty of court cases that say burning the flag is okay.
Yeah.
Being an asshole and flying it upside down is okay.
Yeah.
But it's still a law.
I think it's only a law for the guidelines of how the federal government can do it. Like, for instance, like Trump
Congress, it is an actual law.
Yeah,
7D provides that the flag of the United States of America, when it is displayed with another flag against a wall with crossed staffs, should be on the right, as the presenter or podium looks out at the audience. And it even says if you drape it over a street at like a town, a county fair or a block party, the blue square, I think, like to the right is like facing north or facing south or something like that.
Right, but that
If the street
it's
is
like a code, right? It's not actually a law that's enforced with a penalty.
no,
of any
it's
sort.
in the federal code. It's in, which is law. Federal code just isn't written by some guy in a library. It's written by Congress.
Well, right, but I think there's a difference between enforceable laws and codes.
It's nobody's going to get arrested for not flying the flag properly.
Yeah, because it's not an enforceable, like law enforcement can't arrest you for it. I think laws and codes are different.
There's plenty of laws that aren't criminal.
Well, no, but it's like laws and codes. It's like, yeah, it's not a criminal law. Yeah, which makes it a code. I think. I mean, I might be wrong about that definition, but yeah, we're definitely breaking it all the time. That was the point. And so I think it's maybe foolish, but I wouldn't. And like I said, the Confederate flag again. You want to fly it, fine. I think it signifies that you're celebrating traitors, but whatever.
Yeah, and there's very specific things to do and not do with the American flag, and flying it upside down. When you fly a flag upside down, whatever research I find, I know what I'm talking about. When you fly a flag upside down, it's because you're in distress. Distress means that you need help.
Right. Yeah. Like that's why I would reserve it for that.
If you're a boat, if you're a ship and you're flying it upside down, you're going down. You're taking on more.
Yeah. Which is why I would reserve it for that and not for, I just don't like President Obama. Biden.
Biden, Obama, Trump.
Whichever one, whoever you don't like. Yeah.
I have an American flag flying out front right now and one out on my seawall in the back. They're both lit at night. They're both higher than the other flags around them. Out front is a pride flag on the left and the thin blue line on the right, and same out back, actually.
Hey, which, by the way, I learned something this week. Interesting. Apparently at Disney World, the American flags, for the most part, they do not have 50 stars on them, so that they don't have to take them up and down all the time and have lights on them. Like a lot of them that you just see throughout the park.
But see, I don't agree with that either.
It feels like a weird workaround, but
you don't see, whatever it is.
Yeah. Anyway, I just thought it was interesting that their workaround was like, well, we'll just not have 50 stars on it so that we're in compliance with the code.
Neil Thompson from YouTube says, back to our World War III thing, which I know I'm right on too.
Yeah, North Korea being in Ukraine is definitely something where I'd go, yep, we're putting one in the column for it getting a little closer. Yeah. However, like I said, I would need there to be.
Here's the other thing that you're not considering, or maybe you are and still don't agree. I don't know. But Iran and the Soviet Union, or Russia, or whatever they're called this week, Iran and Russia have been talking. So if you think that like their intelligence services aren't working together.
No, I know they are working together.
This is my whole point.
Yeah.
The same thing with the Civil War in the United States that I think is going on right now. The world war globally is not military versus military, with the media on the front lines reporting like this is a hockey game. There are things happening in the background. And I think through the 80s, especially when we first started seeing guerrilla warfare turn into urban warfare and terrorism.
Yeah.
People aren't wearing uniforms and matching team colors anymore.
Right. And I think that is a problem, is that in the war on terror, that was terrorist organizations that were, maybe protected by states, but Al-Qaeda, the Taliban were not really. It's not like Afghanistan was controlling the Taliban. The Taliban was controlling Afghanistan. It worked the opposite direction.
Right.
The difference to me,
that's what is different now. Even in Vietnam.
Well, no, I think the difference now is that China and Russia, which are like legitimate countries, are the ones that are like maybe cutting people's internet cables and stuff. That's where, and they're skirting the rules and expecting all of us to play by the rules. And I think that is the conundrum for our Pentagon.
But that's my point. This is modern day warfare.
And it may be
influencing elections versus via social media.
Right. I just think that we'd have to call it something different. I don't think you could call it World War III when you're not having troops from those countries. I think it's a totally different thing. And which is why I wouldn't put it at a world war.
But again, you're still making it black and white. And that's what I'm saying is we don't have generals. We have people like Elon Musk who does this.
Which, by the way, I'll send you a video of Tim Walz doing the exact same thing from the campaign. I meant to send that to you already, but
yeah, I think I know which one you're talking about.
It's the exact same. There's literally no difference. He does the heart and throws it out to the people at the top. I mean, it's no different. No one said anything about it. And meanwhile, by the way, at Columbia this week, hold on.
Tim Walz saying from a racist country, but anyway,
that's see. I think that's racist to say if you're from a country that has racist background.
My realtor in Belize and his family left South Africa because they were white and supported the blacks coming to power and were against apartheid.
You're painting everyone. You're painting everyone in. First of all, Elon Musk, how old is he? I mean, was he a child during the 90s? Right? I mean, like, he's not that old.
This doesn't mean I was a child during the 90s here, and I still love the United States that I was.
I know, but this would be like you saying everyone in Mississippi is racist just because they used to be. A lot of people in Mississippi used to be racist.
I don't even want to go through Mississippi.
So, like, here's the problem that I have. Columbia this week. There were anti-Israel protests. They disturbed a class. They poured concrete apparently down the sewage okay. They're literally saying Jews have to die. And no one's calling out that as no one's calling that Nazism. Meanwhile,
no, I'll say it.
Well, but the media sure. I mean, I did not see I saw a couple of stories in conservative media. I saw nothing on CNN. I didn't see my Instagram blow up or YouTube with images of these people that were mass going in and saying Jews should all be eliminated.
Here it is with
that's
you.
That's Nazism.
Here it is with you righties. Do you know since July, we have had one school shooting per week?
That's not true. That's
July. I just got it from the FBI.
That's not. Look. No, you didn't. You got it from. I guarantee you got it for.
You don't know who I was talking to.
No. Here's the thing. First of all, how was there a school shooting in July? School's not
exactly
in July.
Exactly. And it's still. And are you seeing any of them?
No. Here's the thing. Wrong. What do you call a school shooting? First, no. Hold on. Let's talk about it.
Oh, what do you
call a school shooting? What do you define?
The guy who wanted to create or wanted to compare school shootings with what was it? Trans surgeries.
No, I was saying no. That I did. No, hold on. Let's go back. Let's go back.
Does everybody hear that? Go back. That's the sound of Blake backpedaling.
No, I'm not backpedaling. I'll defend that right now if you want to. I mean, I think doing transgender surgeries on minors absolutely should be illegal. There's no data that proves that it's okay. The science behind it was bunk. We should not do permanent bodily damage to minors. Period. That's why we don't let them get tattoos. That's why we don't let them get married. That's why we don't let them drive a car till they're 16. There's all sorts of things that we've said. You are not mature enough to make that decision. You should not be able to make that decision under the age of 18 to actually do chemical or surgical interventions. I just don't believe in that. And I think that is the best thing Donald Trump has done so far is to put a stop to that. We've found that there's no evidence to support that. In fact, there's evidence, which is why a lot of other countries are also stopping this. Is not a Trump phenomenon. This is England. This is France. This is Germany. All these other countries are doing the same thing because they've realized the data is not on their side. In fact, the NIH funded stuff that we gave $10 million to fund, they didn't release the research because it didn't work out in their favor. And they were like, we don't want it to be politicized. So we paid for research that's not going to get released because it wasn't convenient to the narrative. My point on school shootings is we need to define what that means. It's not every town.
I've got a definition for every.
Okay, what's the definition? So, define it for me.
Actually, if every town for gun safety reported that there were at least 219 incidents of gunfire on school grounds in 2024.
Right,
219. How many weeks in a year?
Well, so here's the thing. What do you think people think when you say there was a school shooting?
When they say incidents of gunfire, to me, because the average.
Hold on. You didn't say incidents of gunfire first. You said there have been that many school shootings.
Somebody that's been in one, the average gunfight is within 3 feet and is less than 3 rounds total fired.
Right. I'm not asking that.
All I need for a school shooting is 1 round being fired. That's all I want.
What do you think? Right. But you say school shooting.
They're not allowed within 1,000 yards of a school in the first place.
Is it a school shooting if the resource officer on grounds accidentally discharges his weapon onto the ground? Is that a school shooting?
Yes.
I think that's dishonest. I think that's dishonest.
They call that an accidental discharge. We called it at the Secret Service a negligent discharge.
But you wouldn't call it a school shooting. No one would reasonably call that a school shooting. And every town for gun safety does. And my point is that when you try to make the number big and scary, you're not helping solve the problem.
Okay, so you're saying out of 219 shootings, how many of them were school resource officers accidentally discharging their weapon?
I don't have the numbers for me since July, but I have gone into the records that go into every single school shooting since 1996 or something like that. And look at like how many people were killed. And I did for that video that you're referring to. So I'll go back and find the research. I don't have it right in front of me, but I will go find it. So here's the problem. So for example, if someone does a drive-by gang shooting and it's within X amount of feet of the school, they count that as a school shooting, even if it's at night, even if no one was at the school. I don't think that's helpful. I think that you've got 2 problems there you're trying to solve. One, we're trying to solve a drive-by gang shooting. The other one, we're trying to solve a kid that takes a weapon into school and shoots his peers. They're not, so to try to lump those into one big number is, the purpose of that is fear. And the purpose of that is, I think we have made kids way too scared to go to school. More kids die riding their bikes to school every year than are shot in school. You're more likely to get abused by a teacher sexually than to ever be part of a school shooting.
Yeah, I'm a Republican because I was just about to bring that up. You want to talk about fear?
Yeah.
Let's talk about drag queens.
I'm not. Have I ever brought up drag queens? Have I ever brought up drag queens?
We're going left versus right here. So let's.
No, I'm not. I'm not. I didn't say anything about left versus right. I said the media. I said the media wants you to be fearful of these things, and every town for gun safety wants you to be scared of them.
Does Fox News put out these same statistics that CNN and every town is putting out?
They're all guilty of this.
Do we get these from Fox?
The News is guilty of this.
Fox News.
Of what?
Of putting out these gun statistics.
I don't know. I don't watch Fox News, but I would bet probably not. But I also think that here's the problem. But
Fox News is where? Fox News is where on the political spectrum?
But I'm trying to argue your point, Yergs, is that there have not been 219 school shootings since July. I promise you, if some of those are absolutely not the thing that people think about when they think of school shooting, is someone going into a school and shooting children. That's what people think about when you say school shooting. Sure. They don't think that there was a drug deal gone bad in the parking lot overnight and that's a school shooting. That's not a school shooting. And that's why I'm saying, let's not conflate these numbers. If we want to actually solve this problem, which I do, that's the thing is, and that was my point on the transgender thing, is like, I think that you can be upset that kids are doing permanent bodily harm to themselves. I also think you can be upset that kids are getting shot in school sometimes. Both of these things are bad. Both of them, my point in that transgender video, by the way, was that both of them are very rare, is that parents should not be fearful to send their kids to school. School is the safest place for your kids to be, is my point, is that more kids die on their way to school every year than ever come in sort of any harm's way within the school. It's just statistically true. It's also statistically true, and the right is guilty of this for sure. They're pretending that like there are just an enormous number of these surgical or hormonal interventions. Now, there's more of the hormonal ones than the surgical ones. It is a very small number. My point in that video was that there were way more kids that went through the gender surgery. I picked the year 2019 because that was the year that I had the data for, because most of this data is behind, obviously, in both the transgender stuff and the school shooting stuff. We don't generally get, like, FBI does not get gun violence data for 2 years. They were all, like, this year they will release the 2023 data. FBI data is also a little undercounting, I think, on some stuff. But my problem is that there are way more of the transgender things than kids that are shot in school. And so that was my point, was that, yes, in 2019, the data.
there are $500,000. Yeah, $500,000. There are 500,000 NCAA athletes in college sports,
That seems high.
according to NCAA, the NCAA president.
Yeah, that surprises me.
So, yeah, but when you say NCAA, we're not just talking about like Penn State football. We're talking about sports that you don't see on TV because it's a university you never heard of. They're still governed by the NCAA.
But do they govern like JUCOs and stuff? They don't, do they? I don't know enough about NCAA.
Yes. It's more down to two issues. One is the age. Are they out of high school? And there's even high schools that use the NCAA, because like my two brothers went to a private school that has what are called postgraduates, meaning they're going to essentially a 13th year of high school to essentially prepare better to go to college, but they're out of high school. So those schools use NCAA rules instead of, in my case, back in Pennsylvania, the Pennsylvania Interscholastic Athletic Association or National Federation of High Schools. So 500,000 NCAA athletes. How many of them are transgender?
I don't know.
10.
Yeah, and that was my point, is that this is not the statistical gigantic thing that people are making out to be. We are talking about, but still at those numbers, that's still more kids than got shot in schools.
More than 10?
Well, keep in mind, those are two different.
He had more than 10.
Hold on. They're two totally different categories. One is college athletes. The other one is K through 12 data. So it's two totally different piles of people. Obviously, there's a much bigger pile of kids that are in. And so I was looking at the data specifically for people K through 12 age kids. And I'm trying to pull it up. I just can't find my notes, but oh wait, hold on. Here it is. Okay. Where is it? Okay. 13 to 14-year-olds. So here's what's weird. The data on the trans surgeries specifically does not include, for some reason, it basically the only statistical worth talking about is the 15 to 17-year-olds. It's weird though that they didn't really talk about 13 and 14-year-olds. They said under 11. So anyway, the point was it was 2.1 to every 100,000 kids. And so that turns out to 98 kids in the year 2019, which in the same year, there were a total of 25 people, kids, that same. So by the way, and I'm taking only the 15 to 17-year-olds was 98. And I'm taking every kid under the age of 18 for the school shootings and saying there were only 25. So it's a 4x multiplier. And by the way, that's not killed too. And that's including the shooters and stuff too. Okay. So that's all injuries in school shootings.
Yes, my definition of school shooting. What is your definition of transgender?
My definition in this specific case is people that had surgical intervention. These are children that had surgical interventions, and specifically as 15 to 17-year-olds in 2019. I would assume that number is higher than it was in 2019 because I don't think we hit the peak of that in 2019. That's just the last year that I could find data for. So it was 98 that had surgical intervention. I'm not talking about hormonal. I'm not talking about kid that just dresses like a girl. I'm talking about this is surgical interventions with minors. And that number is 4 times higher than school shootings. And my point was that we hear a lot more about school shootings. You just said it yourself. Oh, there's been 219 of it. People think these are happening all the time. And my point is they are not. They're both rare. That doesn't mean we can't care about those rare cases, that we should just shove them off.
Things, of the surgical interventions and the school shooting, which one is approved by a parent and which one is not?
It doesn't matter. I don't think it matters.
It does.
I don't think it does.
You don't get to tell me how I raise my kid.
Do you? Would it be okay if you thought your kid should do heroin? Would we say that's okay if you gave your kid parental approval, or do we think it's okay when adults buy alcohol for children? Because we make that illegal. We arrest people for that all the time.
Yeah, we probably shouldn't have that conversation live on the radio.
Well, I mean, look, you brought it up. I'm going to have the conversation. I don't care what a parent says. By the way, I also don't care what a parent says when a doctor tells them, would you rather have a live son or a dead daughter? That is not fair to tell a parent that they're going to they're going to be, yeah, this is a thing that has happened. It's well reported. The doctors pressured parents into, your kid's going to kill themselves if you don't let them do this. We do not need kids making these kind of decisions.
That's true.
That's what? No, it's not. The suicide rate is high. There's no evidence that the suicide rate is lower for transitioning kids.
That's because they're all dead.
No, it's not. That's not true. I will send you some stuff, some data that is profoundly disturbing. The fact that this stuff was going on with kids. I care about protecting kids from gunfire and from unnecessary surgeries. If you want to change your gender after you're at the age of 18, go for it. I just don't think you should be able to do it when you're a minor. I don't think doctors should be allowed to do it. I don't think hospitals should do it. I don't think you should take hormones or anything that does any sort of bodily harm to you potentially, especially when we don't know the stuff. Most of this stuff has not been FDA approved for minors. This is a problem. We are not backing this up with science. We're not backing this up with data, and minors should not be involved in it. Just like minors shouldn't be able to get a tattoo. I'm fine with that too. I don't want minors making decisions that permanently alter their body when they're children. I mean, honestly, I'm not sure 18's even the right number for that. I think we've learned a lot more about the brain, and like the male brain's not really developed till 25. So I'm not sure, we're literally handing.
Are you as active about trying to prevent LGBT youth suicide?
I don't want any kids killing themselves, period. I think the suicide rate, I think is alarming that's happened in the raise in the last decade and a half.
Of attempted suicide is 18%.
And what's the rate of suicide after they transition? It's also high. My point is, I don't think it solves the problem they think it's going to.
It's LGBT youth in general, transition or not, but it's more than 2 times higher than teenagers of the general population.
It's also spiked in the general population too. I'm very concerned about first of all, I'm concerned about the suicide rate of every group of demographic, including single men in their 40s and 50s. I mean, that's the high. You want to talk about suicides? That's the group that's killing themselves at the highest rate. But the kids, I mean, look at the female.
Mostly because they're veterans.
Well, some of them, yes. I mean, the veteran rate is high. The male rate has gone up, and it's actually it's moved. It used to be more of a white thing. It's actually moved to other races now. It's not just. It's like a loneliness epidemic. Look at the suicide rate increase. Not just the suicide rate, but look at the attempted suicide rate of the number of teenage females that are going to ERs for attempted suicides. It has skyrocketed since 2012 at a much higher rate than boys. All of this stuff we should look at and try to figure out how to prevent it from happening. But what my point is that none of it helps if you try to lump all the numbers together into one scary 219 school shootings.
Probably a little extreme.
And I think that's the problem, is that a drug deal gone bad in the parking lot at the football stadium where no one's there is not the same thing as a kid walking into the school with a gun and shooting. There are two totally different problems that you have to solve. And one of them, frankly, I think we have more responsibility to solve than the other, because it's impossible to prevent. Not impossible. It's very hard to prevent the part where like a drug deal goes bad. That's just the weapons discharge of the security officer. Obviously, we want that to not happen. I think there needs to be more training. There's all sorts of reasons we can prevent that. But what we really all, I think, are on the same page about, we don't want someone going into a school with the intent to kill children. That's what we're trying to prevent. And my point is that is very, very, very rare. I'm not saying, I'm just going, it's rare, so we don't need to worry about it. I'm saying it's rare. We need to find solutions that fix that problem. But trying to inflate the numbers is not going to solve the problem. The best solution I've seen is like, how many ex-military people do we have in this country? I would pay, what if we could pay one for every high school in the country? The budget is not that much. And you could even pay something ridiculous, like $100,000 a year, to literally sit outside in uniform with an AR. And that's their job. They're just the guy outside the door, the one entrance into the school. You're going to have to go through that guy first. I think we'd never have another school shooting again if we did that. And I'm all for creative solutions like that. Some people look at that and they go, oh, no, we can't militarize. Okay, well, what do you want to do? Do you want to save these kids' lives or not? I think it's worth trying. I also think if we put a sign up that said we have armed teachers, whether you actually had armed teachers or not, would also solve it. But, I think we need to talk about creative solutions.
That's going to cause more problems, because I would never put, if I had, in fact, at one point I did have an alarm system on my house. The company put their little flag in my front yard, protected by
Right.
Jake's alarm service.
Which they say that does
I yanked that out. He wasn't off my steps. I yanked that out of the ground because that actually attracts professional burglars.
Why?
Because there's a like bragging rights. It's a dare to get into that house.
Right, but don't you think it repels more non-professional burglars?
No.
Because they're going to go
from gangs, especially not, because that's part of the right.
Well, maybe. I mean, I think that I would love to see some stats on that. I mean, I think it'd be pretty hard to measure, but I mean, I think that there's a reason almost every shooting, the mass shootings, happen at a place that's a no gun zone and has a sign that says as much. I think that that's not a coincidence, and we got to at least think about it. I'm not saying I want it to be the Wild West, everyone carries everywhere. I am saying I think that someone well-trained with a firearm outside of school might have to be the thing. And like I said, it's exceedingly rare. It's not a thing that actually happens as much as people think it does because of people like Everytown for Gun Safety that inflate the numbers on purpose to scare people. I just think it's bad. I don't like that my kids have active shooter drills at school because I think that's a foolish thing to do when the kid that's probably shooting up the school goes there and knows what the drill is. I think you have that secret with staff. You don't expose that to the children, and you don't make them think that it's realistically going to happen.
That's something that's got to be practiced.
I don't think the kids need to. I think the staff needs to, but not the children. I think that it's
because it's a team effort. Just the teachers are going to lock the door and close the windows and do whatever else. The kids need to practice turning their desks towards the door to use it as a barricade.
I don't think you need to practice it.
Whatever the actual and policies vary.
I know, but then doesn't the kid that has the gun know the policy?
Look at Butler, Pennsylvania. We had the Secret Service protecting Donald Trump.
Yeah.
I can sit here for an hour and tell you all the things those agents did wrong while he was standing up in the very spot he was shot in. Wrong. That alone is wrong. But they're trained professionals.
Yeah, so but I also think
you think that a kid is going to get, or a teacher are going to get those types of things right on game day?
I think lockdowns are not that complicated. Lockdowns are not protecting the president. Lockdown are lock the doors and hide.
Neither is holstering a weapon.
Well, yeah, but I mean we should have the training to do that.
Had a tough time doing
My point is, I think the staff needs to be trained, not the students. I don't think you need to give them the fear that that's going to happen. I also don't think you need to telegraph what you're going to do. I think letting parents know that you have plans, like our school district actually did a really great thing where they sent out a thing after one of the school shootings. They were like, hey, we just want to let parents know that we have policies and here's what you were letting you some of our policies, but we're not telling you all the policies because we want them to be secret. But they let us know a few things where it was like the specific thing that happened in Uvalde, where obviously there was a severe communication problem between the law enforcement that ended up being, it cost people their lives. Part of
that severe communication problem is, one guy got, shaky knees and didn't want to do anything.
Yeah. And
he get his ass fired. He got his ass arrested.
Yeah. And so we got an email that said, hey, look, just so you know, the local law enforcement, if something goes down in our school, our resource officer at the school takes over all of the communication of all the local law enforcement, and they are the point person. And so that basically there can't be communication issues. They have a radio that overtakes everyone else. So there can't be, and everything goes through him until, it's situated. And it was like, okay, that's the kind of thing I want to know. I want to know that they have a policy that knows that this radio thing's going to work right. I just don't think our kids need to be, I don't think our kids need to be told that they're likely to be shot at school when they're more likely to fall off their bike and die on the way to school. And the good reason to tell them to wear a helmet.
I don't want to give them that complacency either. When I adopted Zach, he didn't want to go to the movies because he didn't want to get shot.
Right, but I think that's living in fear, and statistically, it's just not very likely. I think that you're way more likely to get in a car. Every time you get in a car, you're more likely to die than if you get in an airplane. it's statistically, there's no reason to fear flying. I know we just had an airplane crash, but very exceedingly rare. It's one of the safest forms of transportation there are. Well, I mean, as long as you're not flying with a doctor in a little single engine, your stats go down a little bit worse when you've got an inexperienced pilot. But commercially, you're great. But no one gets into their car. Most people don't get in their car and ever think, I'm in danger of dying. And the truth is, they are more in danger of dying from that than most sharks. We're scared of sharks. More people die from cows every year.
Danger and dying and sharks and whatever. I know that my back door is open and my dogs ain't in here anymore. So we're coming up on 1:30. So that's a good 2.5 hour show today. We got into a little bit of a slugging match there towards the end.
Yeah, I mean, I'm awful. I feel like
the trans and the.
I just think there's too much fear mongering in the media, and I don't want to do it.
So hang on for 1 second. So that's it, gang. We're going to finally cut and give the UG Channel XL back to the rest of everybody over in the UK. Thanks for joining us today. We'll be back on Monday for Up the Middle and Both Sides Now, 11 a.m. Eastern, 8 Pacific. Jane Stahl will join me in the second hour. We're going to be going our top 5 influential people. I already gave my top 5. They were all... Mine were the top 5 broadcasters that I found to be the most influential. I'm going to now give 6 through 10 because I already did my 5. She's going to give the top 5 influential people to her. And actually, none of them are writers. She's chosen to go that route. So tune in for that. In the second hour, we'll have updates on cabinet picks and everything in the first hour. And we'll probably be scratching our head on that. What are you working on for the Homeless Conservative?
I stayed up way too late last night till like 2 a.m. I think I'm going to try to start. I'm trying to figure out what to do more on YouTube and more than just the normal hour-long sort of episode. And I've thought about doing live stuff, but then I was like, maybe that's not the right thing to do right now. I think what I'm going to try to do is start for the people that won't allow me to come argue with them on their show or podcast, I'm just going to start arguing with the video of them. So I think I'm going to start like grabbing a video and pausing it and kind of going back and forth, even though it's not a real back and forth.
I'm actually going to do more of that on my solo days, like the first hour on Monday.
Yeah.
The hours on Tuesday and Thursday, where I'm going to start picking fights with, I actually commented as Up the Middle on your transgender.
Yeah. No, I saw it. Yeah.
It was some smart ass comment to pick a fight with you.
Yeah.
Speaking of which, damn it, I wanted to talk about this today too. One of the shows I was on, I forget how, I think I met them through my Thursday morning group, the Facebook group for it. I was on this show a couple months ago, a Monday night thing, and it's me and these 3 co-hosts, and they said they reached out to me. They gave me an offer to come on and wanted to talk about my show and this, that, and the other thing. And I'm like, okay, cool. Let's go. I'll be there. What do you need? And like, no, just show up, blah, blah, blah. That's it. Okay, cool. And I go on, and it's the most damn boring show I'd been on.
Were they just not fighting?
And I'm thinking that's what it's going to be, like political or societal discussion.
Yeah.
And they're just like trying to bust each other's balls. And I'm just sitting there going, okay, that wasn't funny. Okay. That was boring. And so I didn't get it. And to be fair to them, they had somebody cancel. And I think they messaged me like Sunday night for Monday, or maybe even Monday afternoon for Monday. And I had no idea that it was a comedy show.
Oh,
like on ours, like Misfits Saturday night that Sport Cat used to do. So I'm sitting there, and so finally, like some other episodes come out, and I see some other guys on it. I see some other people guesting on it, and I'm like, oh, they're like fighting back and being kind of a dick. I'm like, oh, I can do that. So I messaged them. I'm like, guys, I'm sorry, I didn't know that you
didn't
guys
know the format. Yeah,
I thought we were doing, like your show was like mine. So I got to come back on and kind of redeem myself and kind of help you guys out a little bit. So I did, and it was a great time. But one of them, Kevin, just said about how the Democrats are playing up to big pharma by their line of questioning with Kennedy. And like Liz Warren, Bernie Sanders asking about onesies is playing up to big pharma.
Yeah, I think the Democrats did not do as good at that hearing as I would have hoped that they could. But then again, I don't think Elizabeth Warren is specifically very talented at it either. So yeah, it was. They didn't. I wouldn't say they were like backing big pharma though. That's kind of ridiculous.
Yeah, she's relentless and she's well researched and very bright. It's just that she's very focused far left.
Yeah, but I think my problem with her testimony specifically is not testimony. Her questioning is that I think her line of questioning saying, "Hey, you understand that like you're benefiting financially from suing the pharmacy companies," which is so hypocritical coming from Elizabeth Warren, who's all for that, by the way. She just doesn't like him personally, financially. And then what she's basically said, which I think is absolutely a fair accusation, was, well, okay, so you'll be able to use the government. You will be able to use official HHS letterhead to spout your lies. And I'm like, yeah, that's what Obama and Biden's people have been doing this whole time. That's half what they've been doing is this sort of advocacy via and adding legitimacy to it via them. So
forget about any of that. I don't even give a shit.
Yeah, but I agree. It was like, it didn't help.
Was that I started picking, a fight with him about it. Like, really, Liz Warren, Bernie Sanders, and that's who you're going to say is, siding with big pharma. And I get to thinking about it. And like, the only reason he's really answering me back when I've, gone after him is, so I just talk about his show on mine. He doesn't really care if I think of one way or the other about Liz Warren. And the whole point of that is, now here we are talking about it. So I guess it works.
Yeah. I've tried to do it in short form and I've just found that the 1.5-minute limit is just not enough to get what someone else says and me in a single clip without it being really too dumbed down and too broad. I want to be a little bit more expansive about it. And here's the thing, and show the thing, show the video, show the source, whatever. So I think I'm going to start doing some of that. I've said I'm going to try to do one today, but I've got a doctor's appointment in a little bit. So we'll see if I get one done today.
Well, Neil says yes, emphatically says yes. Do the remix videos of other content. Both of you would kill it with your points and audience. And speaking of points and audience, we are both of us trying to grow audience with our points. Do I have that? I had a it's a video.
That's the goal. We don't people listening to it. It's kind of defeats the purpose.
Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. Go to where is it? Here we go. Yergs.com and mastiff.media for show notes, other info, where you can find it, where you can find us. There's various ways where you can get the video. There is also the direct video feed, which is one of our destinations now that we stream to. Also go to Blake, or you can write Blake by going write Blake at thehomelessconservative.com, or just check out thehomelessconservative.com. Also, that is also your YouTube channel.
That has links to all of it. Yeah. That has links to YouTube, Instagram, Spotify, Apple, all the various things.
And worst case scenario, you can just email us Newz, N-E-W-Z, at Yergs, YERGZ.com. Again, to get us all. And if you need Blake, I'll forward it to him, or Matt, or Jane, Philip, whoever. All right, man.
All right. See, I think I'm on next week. I can't.
Actually, hang out for a second.
Okay, I'll hang out.
Yeah. And then want to ask you some shit afterwards. All right, everybody. Thanks. I'll see you.